Chapter 265. Soul Eaters were greedy and despicable. They would suck away all the happy memories and inject the horrible memories in the form of nightmares, making people die of despair in their sleep. Professor Nini's topic was to let the students experience the confusion and disappointment of having their memories sucked away by the Soul Eaters in advance so that they could come back to their senses as soon as possible. The Soul Eaters were defenseless when they were sucking away the memories. They were as fragile as paper and could be easily killed. Therefore, no matter how ferocious they looked, as long as the mind was steady, there was no need to be afraid. However, knowing was one thing, and being able to do it was another. Most students were extremely repulsed by this experience. However, this was a necessary experience before entering the dungeon. It was a mandatory requirement in the World of Warcraft class. Professor Nini glanced around the classroom and her eyes finally stopped on Luo Boat's face. She said happily, "I remember you, Luo Boat Broheim. You said last class that you wanted to experience it." Classic rumor. Luo Boat immediately shook his head and denied. But the single-threaded Nini did not notice this. She shouted as loudly as she could, "Then let Broheim experience it first. Remember the website, VIP can't you?" Six White nudged Luo Boat's arm and encouraged him, "Go ahead, Luo Boat. There's nothing to be afraid of." Luo Boat was shocked. "That's not what you said last week." White smiled shyly. "Really? Maybe I'm not used to it yet. With Professor Nini here, there won't be any problems." Luo Boat, "But this one is bigger than yours." White, "It's just bigger in size. It's like being tall, short, fat, and thin. The fatter you are, the more powerful you are." Luo Boat. Under the gaze of the surrounding people, Luo Boat finally braced himself and walked up to the podium. This World of Warcraft class had a good start. Professor Nini actually had a good impression of this boy who knew the origin of Warcraft. She grabbed the Soul Eater's tail and swung it upside down. Then she wrapped her other hand around its tail and stroked it from the tail to the tip of its mouth. The soul-sucking monster, which had been swollen to a frightening extent, was instantly flattened into a cylinder. Although it quickly bulged up again, its funny appearance was already deeply ingrained in people's hearts, making them not so scared anymore. Luo Boat walked in front of the Soul Eater, swallowed his saliva, and said, "Let's begin." Professor Nini shook the Spirit Eater and only grabbed the tip of its tail. The Soul Eater immediately pounced on Luo Boat, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Luo Boat stared hard into its eye sockets. Suddenly, its expression froze and it froze in place. Immediately after, a gray bubble slowly floated from his face. The bubble grew bigger and bigger. Luo Boat's face gradually turned pale. "Ah!" He suddenly screamed, and a trace of blood flashed in his eyes. A trace of bloody aura leaked out. The Soul Eater's movements suddenly stopped. Professor Nini looked over in confusion and raised her hand to scratch her head. Luo Boat came back to his senses from the soul-sucking monster's absorption, and suddenly punched out. Puff! The Soul Eater's already bulging stomach was instantly flattened. The memory bubble that it had absorbed was vomited out, and it once again burrowed into Luo Boat's mind. Luo Boat came back to his senses, and some unfamiliar memories flowed through his mind. He didn't know what was going on, and was stunned in place. Luo Boat Broheim, very good. But Professor Nini was already clapping happily. Some of the students in the classroom had a whole new level of respect for him. Luo Boat didn't really come back to his senses until he returned to his seat. He sat in his seat in a daze until White poked his arm and laughed. "You're really something, Luo Boat." Luo Boat came back to his senses, and replied, "I'm just a—" In any case, Luo Boat's performance did play a role in leading the way. Especially the students of the Night Institute, they all felt that they couldn't be weaker than Luo Boat, so they all gathered their courage and walked up to the podium. The screams of people and the howls of the Soul Eater rose and fell one after another. The occasional mockery made the atmosphere even more lively. As for those who weren't very interested, such as Dake Dimming, they quietly did their own things. In the blink of an eye, the class came to an end. Professor Nini counted the names on the roster, and seeing that her teaching mission was gradually coming to an end, she was very excited. Only one more person left. She raised her head and looked at the blond boy at the back of the classroom. This boy had helped her a lot during her first class last week, and she had always been grateful to him. Dake Dimming. Yes. Dake raised his head in response, and noticed that there was no student on the podium. It's still my turn? He put down his pen and stood up. In fact, he was quite curious about the Soul Eater's ability. Although it was recorded in the books that the Soul Eater only absorbed memories, the memory itself could be said to be an emotional trigger. People could feel happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy from memories, and their emotions would change according to the memories. In the development of the Big Sin series of magic cards, emotions, memories, and so on were all elements that could be linked. Only by mastering as much relevant knowledge as possible could one have a good foundation, break through the bottleneck, and develop one's own alchemy array. Half a minute later, Dake walked up to the podium. The poor Soul Eater was being grabbed by the tail by Professor Nini, floating around like a balloon. Although its face was still terrifying. Now that he had looked at it for a long time, it was a little funny. Seeing that another human child was approaching, the Soul Eater's brain, which was as big as a grain of rice, immediately urged it to pounce on the child. If I were on Earth, I would be so scared that my legs would be weak. Dake blinked, and unexpectedly found that he wasn't scared at all. The Soul Eater's face quickly enlarged in his eyes, but it suddenly stopped when it was about to touch him. Professor Nini firmly grabbed its tail, as if she was grabbing a dog leash, so that it couldn't touch the student no matter what. They were very close to each other. Wisps of black gas overflowed from the 3 holes on the Soul Eater's face, emitting a faint rotten smell. Dake looked calm and stood with his hands by his side. Come, suck me. Awoo. The Soul Eater suddenly opened its mouth and inhaled. The black hole in its eyes and mouth rotated inwards, and the suction suddenly erupted. Dake narrowed his eyes slightly and felt his bangs and hair being sucked up. But other than that, there was nothing. Didn't you say that there would be memories being sucked out? He opened his eyes and looked up in confusion, meeting the Soul Eater's big eyes. Why don't you suck? I'm sucking. Can you hurry up? I'm really sucking. The Soul Eater felt humiliated. The Soul Eater sucked desperately. The Soul Eater sucked desperately. The Soul Eater was suffocated into a ball. The Soul Eater's suction was raised to the limit. Amidst the Soul Eater's angry roar, a little transparent tentacle finally floated out from Dake's face. The reason why it was so difficult was not because of other reasons, but only because his spiritual power had been strengthened after practicing the underworld god art. Skills such as the Soul Eater's Soul Eater were related to the strength of the spiritual power. The stronger the spiritual power of the other party, the harder it was to absorb. No matter what, the Soul Eater had finally succeeded after unremitting efforts. It looked at the tentacles floating out from Dake's face, and its eyes were filled with tears. But then, it was just a lick. The Soul Eater's body instantly froze, and then its swollen ball-like body suddenly twitched. Its small brain couldn't understand what had happened at all, and the ecology of its body was completely chaotic in this very short period of time. Its face was facing upwards, and a large number of filament-like tentacles were surging out of its eye sockets and mouth, spreading upwards continuously. There seemed to be something pushing out from within his body, causing the surface of his body to be uneven. What's going on? What happened? Is it going to explode again? The abnormality of the Soul Eater instantly caused the students to cry out in alarm. There was a sudden commotion in the classroom. The people sitting in the front row even hurriedly picked up books and other things to cover their faces, as if they could block the wind of the explosion by doing so. Oh. The Soul Eater's howl was miserable and helpless. Professor Nini looked at it with a confused face, then stretched out her finger and flicked it twice on its belly. But of course, she couldn't see anything. Dake looked at the changes of the Soul Eater in surprise, and for a moment, he couldn't understand what had happened. But as the Soul Eater's body swelled like a balloon, everyone guessed its end. It was going to explode again. Professor Nini suddenly panicked, hurriedly grabbed the Soul Eater and ran out. Fortunately, the last explosion only blew out a gust of wind, but this explosion looked even more strange. She didn't want to be fired because of a teaching accident. This was a rare opportunity. Bang bang bang. Professor Nini quickly squeezed through the front door of the classroom. The curious students stood up instinctively. But not long after, a loud noise came from outside the classroom. Boom! The loud explosion reverberated in the spacious corridor. Dake, who was worried about Professor Nini, dashed out, but the huge and petite body stood still not far away. It turned around. Other than the hair around its face being a little messy, there was nothing wrong with it. It was indeed a behemoth mixed blood. It looks like last week. The Soul Eater couldn't withstand the pressure and exploded in anger. Professor Nini, who returned to the classroom, scratched her head and tried to look cute. Professor, do more safety measures next time, AI Ma, who was sitting in the front row, said worriedly. Hey, hey, hey. Professor Nini's eyes flickered as she changed the topic. Anyway, the lesson is ending soon. Today's homework is to choose a type of commonly seen magical creature for analysis and submit it before next Wednesday afternoon. I'll choose a type of magical creature for next week's lesson. So it's best for everyone to choose a magical creature that you like. Take note that it has to be a commonly seen magical creature. And it's not good if it's too powerful. The students looked at each other and realized that this was an opportunity. The commonly seen magical creatures in the underground city were not as ferocious and scary as the Soul Eater. Although there were very few of them, there were a few types that were cute, beautiful, and harmless. For example, Mushroom Bear. Anna suddenly shouted. Luo Si quickly pulled her down. Dake, who was sitting at the back, couldn't help but laugh. The Mushroom Bear was a bear cub with a mushroom on its head. If one only looked at the picture book, it was as cute as a ragdoll bear. But in fact, the Mushroom Bear could release very troublesome mushroom spores. It was a very dangerous magical creature in the underground city. But boys and girls at this age tended to only look at appearance. Girls liked cute magical creatures, while boys were more inclined towards handsome magical creatures. Someone like Doran, who was still yelling about dragons, and so on. If Professor Nini heard it, she would probably cry. Ring, ring, ring. The bell for the end of class rang. Dake put away the books and called Anna and Luo Si to leave the classroom. Friday afternoon was the opening time of Traveler Street, but they needed to go to the Duel Club to apply for the newcomers competition tomorrow morning. This didn't mean much to Dake. After all, he had a surplus of credits. But for the other 6 people, it was a good opportunity to earn credits. If they attended classes normally, each class was guaranteed to earn at least 10 credits. This semester, there were 14 classes in a week, so they could earn 140 credits. And if they participated in the newcomers competition, the registration fee was 50% off, only requiring 50 credits. If they won, they would earn 150 credits, which was equivalent to a week of classes. The only problem was that it was more difficult to win. After all, the newcomers competition was basically for the second-year students. So it was best to act according to their ability. After lunch, the 3 of them followed the map on the school card and found the Duel Club's office classroom on the top floor of the castle. The Duel Club's office classroom had 5 windows, corresponding to the second year to the 6th year. And the first-year students were naturally included in the second year. Basically, if they wanted to participate in the duel competition, they needed to come here and apply. But sometimes, the Duel Club would take the initiative to send out invitations, usually with extra rewards. This afternoon, the worker at Window 1 was a young lady, who looked like a part-time student. Dake waited in line for about 10 minutes before it was finally his turn. He reported his name, filled out a simple form, paid 50 credits, and received a contestant card. Only those who held the contestant card could enter the duel hall's internal contestant passage. The short-haired lady handed the contestant card to him and softly said, "The newcomers competition will be held on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Before 12 p.m. tonight, the club will send a notice of the duel through your school card. At that time, you will be able to see your duel competition and your opponent." Dake was puzzled. "Do I have to wait that long?" The lady nodded. After the registration, The club will arrange the duel schedule according to the contestants, so it will be a bit late. Dake took the contestant card and looked at it, accepting this explanation. When he turned to leave, one of the members in the office classroom suddenly turned to look at him, his gaze hidden. 2 in 1 4,000 words. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 266. Zach Wilson. Aristocratic Academy, 4th grade, member of the Duel Club. At the same time, he was also a member of the Aristocratic History Research Society. The Wilson family was in the middle of the kingdom's aristocrats. Zach Wilson's father was a viscount with no real power and was currently in the faction of the eldest prince. In fact, most of the members of the Aristocratic History Research Society were inclined towards the eldest prince. Even if their fathers were probably not in the faction of the eldest prince, their subjective will was mostly inclined towards the Eagle faction. In fact, this had little to do with whether they were in favor of war or not. Those old aristocrats simply did not think that the eldest princess was qualified to inherit the throne. A traditional male heir and a deviant female heir. They chose tradition in this multiple-choice question. As for why they did not stand up to support the eldest prince, it was naturally because the situation was not clear enough. Judging the situation, interests first. The ancient aristocrats who could survive until now were not simple people. If the eldest princess's faction showed that they could suppress the eldest prince's faction, they would support the eldest princess without hesitation, even if they had to suppress their disgust and feign civility. Remember, https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP. It was just that the small aristocrats in the Aristocratic History Research Society were still young and were not so shrewd. They did not hide their inner thoughts. Therefore, as the only son of the Dove faction's leader, the Valkyrie, Dake's position was actually the opposite of most of the members of the Aristocratic History Research Society. But the position was one thing, and the inner thoughts were another. Dake originally gave people the impression that he was a typical aristocrat, and it was easy for those small aristocrats to classify him as the same kind of person. Even if he was not, he could be recruited into the society and then through subtle influence, change his thoughts and make things difficult for the Valkyrie. The Aristocratic History Research Society did not have good intentions from the beginning. After Dake left the office classroom with Deanna and Luo C., Zach Wilson whispered something to the people at the next table and then quickly left. The Aristocratic History Research Society had a small gathering this afternoon, and the gathering place was in the society classroom. Zach Wilson soon arrived at the Aristocratic History Research Society's classroom. He pushed the door open and entered. One of them glared at him fiercely. He quickly closed the door and walked past the wall with his head lowered. The interior of the club's classroom was extravagant. The only thing that resembled the Aristocratic History Research Club was the 2 bookshelves against the wall. The bookshelves were neatly stacked with documents and materials related to the history of the aristocrats. It was more decorative than practical. At the round table in the innermost part of the classroom, Mike Owen, a third-year student, was talking softly with the president of the Aristocratic History Research Society. His tone was full of flattery. The sunlight that slanted through the window sprinkled on the table like a thin layer of golden gauze. The president of the Aristocratic History Research Society was the short man who had appeared in the Duel Club's recruitment contest. His name was Angus Jeffrey. The genealogy of the Jeffrey family was very ancient. It was said that they were a meritorious family that had existed since the founding of the kingdom. Their father, Count Jeffrey, was one of the 36 senators of the kingdom and held a high position. Angus Jeffrey had always claimed that he was the son of a senator and was very proud of it. Jeffrey had a head of golden hair that symbolized nobility. The ends of his hair fell to his shoulders. His bangs were neat, his nose was high, and his lips were slightly plump. He could be considered handsome. However, his shoulders were very wide and he was not very tall. His whole body did not seem to be very coordinated. Zach Wilson lowered his head and walked around the wall. He carefully whispered something into Jeffrey's ear. Jeffrey frowned and then relaxed. He chuckled and said, "He signed up for the competition in the second week? Owen, what do you think we should do to get him to join the club?" Owen raised his head and revealed a bright smile. Let's pressure him a little. Let him know that he is nothing by himself. He will naturally look for a group, and we are the best choice." Jeffrey nodded and said, "That makes sense." "Did you see what he was doing in the public restroom last night?" Owen sneered and said, "I heard that he was tutoring in arithmetic. It seems that the quality of this year's freshmen is not that high. They even need tutoring in arithmetic." Jeffrey said, "Tutoring in arithmetic? Helping others in their studies, establishing prestige, and forming a rule. As expected of the son of a duke. He might be more difficult to deal with than we thought." Owen said, "Are you saying that he will establish a new club and have all the first-year students under his control?" Jeffrey said, "That's a possibility." Owen asked, "Then what should we do?" Jeffrey smiled and raised his hand. He put his fingers together and chopped down hard. "Just like you said, pressure him a little." He then looked at Zach Wilson, who had been standing next to him, and asked, "How about it? Can you arrange it?" Wilson's forehead was covered in sweat. He said humbly, "As long as he is strong enough, it will be easy to manipulate." Jeffrey nodded. "Then let Kevin sign up." Elsie Kevin, a top second-year student in the House of Nobles, had just joined the Nobles History Research Club in the second half of last year. With the resources of the Nobles History Research Club, Kevin's strength had grown extremely quickly, and he was far from a first-year student who could defeat him. Dake did not expect that he would be targeted just by signing up. After leaving the Duel Club, he went to the library with Deanna and Luo C to finish this week's homework as soon as possible. His schedule was tight this week. In addition to the newcomer competition on Saturday morning, he also needed to spend time buying the materials for the Killing Skill card. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. After finishing his homework, Dake read for a while. Then, he said goodbye to Deanna and Luo C and slipped away with his backpack. When he registered at the counter, he and Panduola looked at each other. Since there were people around, they did not say anything. Then, he quickly returned to the dormitory, changed into his outdoor clothes, and went out again. The quiet lake reflected the afterglow of the setting sun. People came and went in the pavilion in the middle of the lake that led to Travelers Street. Panduola, wearing a woolen coat, stood quietly by the pavilion, looking up at the edge of the lake. When the students came and went, they could not help but look at her. However, the cold atmosphere made people not dare to approach her. Dake walked through the long covered bridge and finally saw her back. He could not help but walk over. "Senior, what are you looking at?" "Fish." Panduola gently touched her hair and said softly. Dake poked his head out and asked doubtfully, "You can see that?" Panduola laughed. "Can't you just pretend that you can see it?" Dake blinked. "Then let's have an all-fish feast today." Panduola, "Really, let's go." The two of them turned and walked to one of the stone tables. They sat down on the stone stool beside the table. Then, their bodies turned and suddenly disappeared. The same pavilion in the middle of the lake, the same stone stool. The two of them appeared at the same time. Dake stood up and rubbed his hands. "It's a little cold. The temperature has dropped a little recently. I feel like it's going to snow. Has it ever snowed in the castle?" Panduola, "When I was here, it snowed twice. The whole world was white. I didn't like it." Dake, "Is that so?" After that, he did not mention it again. Although he actually liked snow. Dake had not deliberately shopped around the restaurants in Travelers Street, but after walking around a lot, he knew which restaurants were better and which were more stylish. The Waltz restaurant was a better choice, but the atmosphere there was too strong. Now that it was Friday night, there were even more couples there. He could tell that Chen Yushan didn't like crowded places. So he walked a little deeper and found a high-end restaurant with 3 floors. This restaurant, called Lu Mi, was beautifully decorated and of high quality. In other words, it was more expensive. Junior students who were short on credits usually wouldn't come here to spend money. But that was not the point. The point was that there really was an all-fish feast here. Grilled fish, boiled fish, fish rice, fish slices, caviar. When plates of exquisite fish dishes were brought to the table by the waiter, Dake could not help but feel hungry. Panduola also seemed to be in a good mood. It was just that the plates of fish dishes were only the size of a palm. So although it was delicious, there was too little of it. Dake ate a little of each dish and then stopped. He tilted his head and watched as Senior continued to eat. After the table was finished, she obviously wanted more and said regretfully, "As expected, your meat is more to my taste." Dake smiled and said, "Then I'll make it again next time." Panduola shook her head and smiled. "I can't trouble you any more. How is it? Are you busy with your studies?" Dake nodded. "I'm a little busy, but it's always good to be able to learn and see my progress." Panduola, I heard that you're participating in the newcomers competition tomorrow? Dake, yes, the professor asked. Panduola, what time? I'll go cheer you on. Dake, they haven't informed me yet. Panduola, okay, then let's walk around the night market for a while. I haven't walked around at night in a long time. Dake, okay. The deeper the night, the lower the temperature. However, the temperature between people did not drop because of this. Even though the two of them were not the type to talk big, they still chatted a lot on the road and gradually got to know each other better. They were not as passionate as the other couples on the road, nor did they have any intimate contact. However, the atmosphere between the two of them was just right. Panduola was a changeable person. At first glance, she seemed very quiet, but when they first met, they thought that she was very outgoing. However, after interacting with her for a while, they realized that she was actually very introverted. Dake even realized that she was very insecure. This was something that could not be seen from her appearance. 9:30 p.m., the sky was clear and the moon was bright. Dake felt his school card vibrate. After a while, he took it out. As expected, the notice for the duel had arrived. "Is it here?" Panduola leaned over, and the night wind brought with it a hint of cold fragrance. Dake injected a trace of magic power into the card and opened the notice file. He then read it carefully. The 10th round, estimated time is 9:30 p.m. The opponent is Elsie Kevin of the 2nd grade of the Noble House. Panduola frowned slightly. Elsie Kevin? I seem to have heard this name somewhere. Dake smiled. It seems that he's a good opponent to have left an impression on Senior Sister. Panduola said, "That's your first battle. Don't lose." Dake said, "There's no guarantee of victory in a duel. Besides, if a person can't even experience failure in their life, wouldn't they be very incomplete?" Looking at his serious appearance, Panduola couldn't help but chuckle. "How can you find excuses for yourself when you haven't even lost yet?" "Ha!" Dake said in surprise, "I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart." Panduola said, "Okay then. I wish you a great victory tomorrow." Dake said, "Look forward to it." Now that the notice had been given, the two of them had no reason to continue shopping. They chose a path and walked back unhurriedly. At 10 o'clock, they finally returned to the castle. Dake walked Panduola to the tower of the Magic Academy and returned alone. When he returned to his dorm, he was accompanied by the magic elves again. What was there to complain about in life? That night, Dake had a good dream. In the blink of an eye, it was Saturday. Because it was the first time that he would have a duel in an outdoor arena, he was actually quite cautious. He put on his school uniform, put on the badge of the duel club, combed his hair, and spun around in front of the mirror. He felt pretty good. Dake took out his magic card and stored the magic elves into it one by one before putting them in his card bag. He didn't forget to bring the player card in the end and left just like that. This morning, he had an appointment with Anna and Luo C to have breakfast in the cafeteria, so he didn't need to bother the little devil beasts. Anna appeared in the corridor. Her long silver hair was pulled into a one-sided ponytail and tied up with a cute panda hairband. Her face was flushed red, and she looked a little excited. For the 7 first-year students, today's newcomer competition was the real first battle. It was very memorable. Girls were meticulous and sensitive, and they valued ceremonies more. On the other side, Luo C was holding a paper sign made of cardboard. There was a silly big-headed bear cub and a golden ahog cat drawn on it. In the middle was a red heart with a big, "Do your best," written on it. "How is it? Does it look good?" Luosi raised the sign and waved it in front of Dake, her face full of expectation. Although Dake really wanted to ask her why his symbol was a cat, according to the etiquette of the nobles, he should give the lady who had put in a lot of effort a proper compliment. So he squeezed out a sentence, "It's really not bad." Anna smiled slyly at the side. It was rare for the first-year students to wake up so early on a Saturday. Their classmates could be seen everywhere in the cafeteria. Each of the 7 duelists had their own fans. Among them, Saraswati from the School of Magic, Justin Wayne from the School of Knights, and Teddy Dolan from the School of Nobles had more fans because of their personalities and other factors. For people like Dake and Ai Ma, because they always drifted away from the social circle, they only had their own small circles. But some people, on the surface, didn't have many fans, but when they really climbed to the top, they had a lot of support. There were also some people who really didn't have many fans. Around 7:30, the first-year students set off from the cafeteria and walked one after another to the open-air dueling arena. The atmosphere was just right. 2 in 1 4,000. Chapter 267. The Shang-Malian open-air dueling hall was generally structured like the Colosseum in Rome. But under the magnificent appearance, there was a mystery. The huge auditorium that could accommodate tens of thousands of people did not actually exist in the academy, but was distributed throughout the kingdom through a special mechanism. In an era where entertainment was lacking, dueling competitions were extremely popular, and a variety of new industries were derived from them. Although the Shang-Malian dueling competition was not the most authoritative, it was the most popular. Every weekend, tens of thousands of spectators would enter the auditorium from all over the country, and then through the special projection transmission mechanism, they would watch the wonderful duels of the students. At this time, carriages after carriages stopped at the Shang-Malian dueling hall in the capital of the kingdom. After a busy week, going to the dueling hall to watch a wonderful duel was a reward for oneself. But the atmosphere today seemed a little different. As soon as John Sr. walked out of the corner, he could not help but stop. He was 46 years old this year and was still single, but it was good to be able to survive in this era. Website: https://m Vipkanchu. VIPN. He had recently found a way to make a fortune. If he could make a fortune with this, maybe he could really get rid of being single? He glanced at the hall entrance. The rise of the competitive industry was always accompanied by all kinds of spinach. But he was not involved in spinach. He was just a small bookseller, a small book that recorded the information of the players. Every year at this time, there would be new people joining, so he would come on time to collect information in order to draw a new book. But today's atmosphere, John could not help but shrink back to the corner, his heart frightened. The family emblems on those carriages were too scary. Not only were there the family emblems of great aristocrats, but there was also the royal family's emblem. Oh my God, what's going on? John Sr. was so scared that his legs went soft. Is there a member of the royal family among today's newcomers? He shivered twice and quickly retreated. He could not watch anymore. If he was noticed by the royal guards, he would not be able to explain himself. He decided to wait for half an hour before entering the hall. Inside one of the royal carriages, Sage of Beasts, Claire Kate was squinting her eyes as she stroked the back of the fat cat named Galileo. She seemed to be recalling a certain feeling. Beside her, Valkyrie Yvette Saint-Domingue was having an intimate conversation with First Princess Elisha. Ever since the First Princess attended the Shang-Malian Halloween party, Yalvette often chatted with her. Later, when Claire returned, she pestered Claire again. She was always worried that her son would be bullied in the academy. She didn't know if he ate well or wore warm clothes. Would she be lonely without her mother by her side? Even though Elisha and Claire told her that she didn't need to worry, she was still worried. I haven't seen my baby for almost half a year. I wonder if she has lost weight? Yvette looked into the distance, full of worry. The First Princess Elisha comforted him. Duke, you will be able to see it soon. Yvette asked, but can my baby really pass the Duel Club's assessment in his first year? Elisha's tone was helpless. He is the winner of the Crimson Star. Yvette asked. Really? Elisha couldn't help but lean back in her chair and look up at the sky. How did such a smart person become like this? A few minutes later, they walked down from the carriage. Almost at the same time, First Prince Charles also walked down from another royal carriage. Beside him was the Archbishop of the Holy Church, a haggard old man. The two sides looked at each other from afar. The first prince snorted and entered the arena from the other side with the Archbishop. They were here to see the hero, Shang Molian. Dake followed the crowd into the open-air arena and observed the facilities with great interest. This was his first time here. The arena of the open-air arena was obviously larger than the indoor arena. Every arena was at least 120 by 80. The size of the arena would inevitably lead to changes in tactics. In short, the rhythm on the surface would slow down. But the internal confrontation would only intensify. He turned his head and looked at the audience. It wasn't 8 yet, so the connection between the audience and the arena wasn't opened. At this time, there was no one in the audience, so the entire arena seemed quite deserted. If the students wanted to watch the battle, they could only watch from a special seat inside. It was a circular belt between the audience seats and the duel arena. It would not be projected to the various branches of the kingdom along with the duel arena. Then I'll go first. Luo-Si waved the bear and cat sign and walked towards the ring. Dake and Deanna showed their contestant cards to the staff and then entered the contestant passage. What's your round? Dake asked. Deanna waved her school card and squinted. Round 4. Dake asked, if it's 10 minutes per round, then it's 8:30. Do you have a chance of winning? Deanna thought for a bit, a little, but only a little. Dake smiled. Then we'll do our best. Deanna said worriedly, but what if we can't win even if we try our best? Dake said, then we'll win it back next time. Deanna said, that's true. She then smiled. Soon. The ring was full of people. Not only were the first-year students all here, but there were also a lot of high school students and some professors. Although the freshmen's competition couldn't be compared to the competition, the freshmen's vitality added a lot of color to the duel. Professor Cheong-Si and Professor Fox sat side by side. This time, they didn't fight. Next to them, Professor Shi Erfu and Professor Li Li were also there. However, one of them was there to observe as the vice principal, while the other was there to have fun. A little further away, Professor Ryan Harks and Professor Mitya Bartholomew were also there. At 8 o'clock sharp, there was a space distortion in the auditorium. Then, the audience members appeared in the auditorium one by one. They weren't really there, they were just projections. Dark, who was in the contestants' lounge, looked through the window at the ring-shaped belt, trying to find Senior Pandora's figure. Then, he unexpectedly saw Yvette in the audience. Yvette was sitting in the front row. On her left was the princess, and on her right was Claire. Her soft blonde hair was very eye-catching. If she just sat there, she would be a model of gentleness and elegance. However, Yvette's face was full of worry. It was probably because the clock had already rung at 8 o'clock, but she still didn't see her precious son. Dake couldn't help but hesitate. Why are they here? I'm stuck. Make up for it before 6 o'clock. Chapter 268. Doc was surprised by Yvette and Claire's appearance, but he immediately guessed that it was most likely because St. Marian's Rookie Showcase was held on the Saturday morning of the second week of school every semester. Therefore, they had specially come to watch the match. This didn't affect Dake's mood much. It was their arrival that made it difficult for Dake to lose. He had to win. Looking at Yvette's face, which he hadn't seen for a long time, Dake couldn't help but reveal a warm smile. The first match of every Saturday started at 8 o'clock sharp. Unlike the mock matches that Dake had experienced before, the official competition had both referees and commentators. Today, the commentator was a member of the Duel Club, Zach Wilson. Wilson's cheeks were slightly longer, and the corners of his eyes were hooked. When he squinted his eyes, there was a trace of sinisterness. However, he was quite popular in the Duel Club. Remember the website, Vipkanshu. Via's one of the pure-blooded aristocrats. He was humble, kind, and willing to help others. On the surface, he was a good person. Therefore, when he proposed to change shifts this morning, he smoothly swapped places with the original commentator. Standing on the commentary platform, Wilson looked around. Sure enough, he saw the president of the Aristocratic History Research Society, Angus Jeffrey, and the third-year Michael Owen in the ring. Lackey! He cursed in his heart. How he wished that the person standing in Owen's position was him. After his gaze swept past the two, Wilson couldn't help but look at the audience. He was also shocked by the strength of the audience this morning. The appearance of the eldest princess, the eldest prince, the Valkyrie, and the Archbishop gave this week's rookie competition an unusual meaning. If there was a dazzling performance this morning, it would be an opportunity for both the contestants and the commentator. Wilson suddenly became excited. The commentator wasn't the referee, and couldn't have a substantial impact on the results of the competition. However, the commentator also acted as the host, so it had an effect on the direction of public opinion. Wilson originally wanted to watch Dake Dim Eng make a fool of himself from the nearest distance, but now he didn't dare to be biased. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. After a week, we are once again at the Shang Malian Newcomer Competition. Familiar audience members should know that today is a special day. New duelists will usually have their first battle in the second week after joining the duel club, which is today. But you definitely don't know that among this batch of rookies, there are a total of 7 first years. As for who these 7 young duelists are, we will slowly reveal it in the upcoming matches. And now, let's welcome the 2 contestants of the first rookie competition. The red team player is a veteran who joined the duel club in the second half of last year. He's really old. He's a second-year knight, Willie Bronte. That's right. Today is the classic fated showdown between the Academy of Knights and the Academy of Nobles. The blue team's contestant is one of the 7 true newcomers, Teddy Dolan from the first-grade Aristocrat Academy. Let's give the 2 contestants a round of applause. Pa 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 pa. Warm applause and cheers rang out from the ring. Dolong, Dolong. The little fatty, Pit Tan, waved the flag with all his might and cheered with all his might. Dolan, who had walked up to the blue team's contestant platform, blushed slightly. The pressure of being the first to go on stage had lessened somewhat. But when he arrived at the contestant platform, he lowered his head and saw the 120-meter-long formal field, which made him feel a little dizzy. His opponent, Willie Bronte, was an excellent second-year student. He was different from the second-years who had just participated in the recruitment competition this semester. He was already considered a veteran of duels. And he was only a true newcomer who was dueling for the first time in a formal field. His chances of winning were about 0. Winning or losing isn't scary. Let's fight for momentum. Dolan slapped his cheeks hard to concentrate. Why isn't he a hero? The eldest prince in the audience was a little irritated. The appearance of the eldest princess at the same time put him in a bad mood. The old archbishop glanced at him from the corner of his eye and sighed in his heart. He still said slowly, Teddy Dolan, the youngest son of the Dolan family. The Dolan family is a force that must be won over. The eldest prince glanced at the contestant platform and said, I know. If we want to proclaim our purpose, the support of the military is very important. The Dolan family's prestige in the military is second only to Big Bear's. But this little Dolan, when he graduates and joins the army, it will take at least 6 years. If he wants to be promoted, it will take even longer. The archbishop leaned back in his chair, raised his head slightly, closed his eyes, and steadied his breathing. In a corner of the audience, a man wearing an ordinary overcoat was looking at the stage with satisfaction. Not bad. It looks like little Teddy didn't slack off in class. Back then, his old man couldn't even successfully join the dueling club in the first year. When we go back to the family, we can finally show off. Dolan didn't realize that his old man was secretly hiding in the audience to watch. He focused his mind and carefully measured the distance between the 2 sides of the field, making a little decision in his heart. If the advantages and disadvantages of the magic guide card weren't taken into account, the biggest difference in pure strength between the first and second years was in the summoning speed. The absolute difference in summoning speed, coupled with the high-speed magic guide sprite, could form a deadly fast attack in a short-distance field. But the field had become bigger, which greatly limited this kind of quick attack tactic. This was actually an advantage for the first years. Contestants from the blue team, please get ready as soon as possible. The referee's prompt was accompanied by a whistle. Dolan was suddenly stunned, then hurriedly reached out to touch the card table and injected magic power to activate it. As the projection of the card table appeared in front of the contestants' platform, the curtains of Dolan's first battle opened. In the first round, he successfully summoned a 3-star magic guide sprite with an attack power as high as 1,500, Little Rock Dragon. Then, he summoned a large number of third-year high school magic guide sprites, and held on for a long time under the relentless pursuit of the second-year senior. In the end, after Willie Bronte successfully sacrificed a 4-star magic guide sprite to summon, his lineup was completely defeated, and he was defeated helplessly. Let us congratulate contestant Bronte for holding on to the dignity of a senior. Of course, contestant Dolan's tenacity is also very strong, worthy of being called the best among the first years. Let us also offer him a round of applause. Wilson announced loudly on the commentary platform. He felt that his commentary was the same as the atmosphere in the field, and he was also getting into the zone. Dolan's defeat was more or less expected. Apart from his companions who felt a little disappointed, only a few thorns from the Knights Academy mocked him after he left the field. It was not a big deal. According to Professor Cheong-si, it was not shameful to lose the first battle. The main topic of this competition was to be able to learn from failure and see clearly where the gap between oneself and the opponent was. I wonder when Dake's match will be? Dolan immediately changed his occupation to spectator. As soon as I woke up, I saw the big shots driving the train. I was scared silly. 6:02 p.m. in 1. Chapter 269. Brat, it's not terrible to lose. How can you still laugh after losing? When you get home, I'll give you a good beating. The man in the overcoat in the corner of the auditorium stood on his tiptoes, wanting to see his son's face more. Unfortunately, as Doran entered the ring, the people in the auditorium could no longer see him. The man sighed, thinking that his son should be doing well in the academy and didn't embarrass the Doran family. That was enough. He turned his head and glanced at the place where the eldest Prince Charles was and couldn't help but think, at this level, the eldest prince probably won't like him. I don't have to worry about being involved in the ZZ vortex. Our Doran family are all uncouth people. Finally, we have a son with aristocratic style. I have to take it easy. Well, let's change to Rotan. The competition was in full swing. Before Doran stepped off the stage, the two duelists in the second round were already waiting. These two players were second-year students who had just joined the duel club. It was a close contest. Old John carefully slipped into the Shang Malian Duel Branch Hall and found an inconspicuous place in the auditorium to watch the competition. He had a unique skill in sketching. With just a few strokes, he could draw people 70 to 80% similar to each other. Therefore, his books were more popular than other books. Even if the two second-year students in front of him were passers-by, he could still recognize them at a glance. Remember in a second, https://m, Vipkanchu. VIP. But these two people were obviously not the focus of the royal family. He stared with his small eyes, feeling a little anxious. If he could catch the attention of the eldest prince and the eldest princess, maybe his book could sell well and enter the stage of making a fortune ahead of time. But in the third round, it was still two passers-by characters. Although the overall atmosphere of the newcomer competition was gradually warming up, it seemed that there was no explosive point yet. In the contestant lounge, Dake withdrew his gaze from the duel arena. The level of the second-year newcomers was uneven. Some of them couldn't even compare to the first-year students this year. The observation value was not great. But the next round was Anna's turn. He turned to look at his side. Anna was sitting on the chair on tiptoe, looking at the cards mysteriously. It seemed that she wasn't afraid of the first battle. If I were her age now, I would probably be extremely nervous, right? Dake thought about it and felt that the Shang Molian students were actually quite amazing. If he didn't have the memories of his past life, he definitely wouldn't be able to be so calm. However, a first-year student wasn't someone he could compare himself to. A few minutes later he reminded, "It's almost over." "Is that so?" Anna subconsciously covered her magic card. Then she chuckled and jumped down from the chair. She patted her skirt and said excitedly, "It's my turn." Dake stretched out his hand and spread his fingers. "Good luck." Anna gently touched his palm and ran towards the contestants' tunnel. Not long after, she walked out of the contestant passageway behind the red team's platform and showed her contestant card to the staff member guarding the passageway. The staff member was a third-year girl from the duel club. When she saw that the contestant for the fourth round was actually such a cute little girl, she couldn't help but say when she returned the contestant card to her, "Good luck." Anna pulled her skirt and said politely, "Thank you." Then she raised her head and looked at the blue team's passageway. The person who appeared at the passageway was a chubby little guy. He looked arrogant and seemed to have some skills. Anna took out a card from her card bag and held it in her palm. She said softly, "Good luck. You're the best." The magic card glowed slightly, as if it was responding to her expectations. "The winner has been decided." As the blue magic ball's life enchantment was completely broken, the contestants for the third round left the stage. The red team's contestant walked down the stage with a red face and waved at his friends and family in the audience. He was obviously very excited. After he walked into the contestant tunnel, Diana walked over to the red team's platform at a leisurely pace. She climbed the stairs and used the height of the stairs to look for Luo Ci's figure in the ring. Finally, she saw Luo Ci waving his card and the word, "Bear Heart Suit Cat," on it. She couldn't help but smile slyly. When she reached the contestant's platform, her gaze was still wandering between the ring and the audience. She heard from Dake that Dake's mother was also here. She wondered if her parents were here too. It would be great if they were here too. Anna missed her mother a little. Suddenly, she turned her gaze and saw a giant man who was more than 2 meters tall in the crowd. Her face relaxed visibly. Especially when she saw the silver-haired woman leaning against the giant man, Anna was even happier. She jumped up like a little rabbit and waved her hand in that direction. Viscount Greatbell had lush brown hair and a beard that surrounded his cheeks like a lion's mane. Sitting there, he was taller than a person standing. At first glance, one would think that there was a giant brown bear behind him. His strong and majestic physique gave people an unusual sense of security. The woman leaning against him had shoulder-length silver hair. She was tall and slender. She looked out of place with the giant man, but somehow they looked harmonious. That was Anna's mother, a woman with a trace of royal blood. Anna had undoubtedly inherited her mother's genes. However, her mother was 1.75 meters tall, which was slightly different from her petite self. However, Anna felt that this was proof of her infinite potential, so she wasn't in a hurry at all. Viscount Greatbell saw his daughter waving at him and said proudly, "See, I told you our daughter could do it. Even that kid from the Dolan family made it. Anna will definitely be able to do it." Viscount Greatbell's wife saw his proud face and blinked. She said, "Then why don't you hurry up and say hello to our daughter?" Viscount Greatbell's heart skipped a beat. "You're right." He stood up abruptly. His broad back completely blocked the view of the audience. Then, a beast-like voice shocked the audience. "Anna, Daddy is here." The audience suddenly became silent. The eldest prince in the front row couldn't help but look back. However, when he saw that it was the Great Bear Viscount, he suppressed his anger and turned back. The archbishop next to him opened one eye and quickly closed it again to rest. "That's Anna's father, right?" Claire glanced at him and asked Yalvet. Yalvet nodded. "Anna is the little bear on the stage? She has a good relationship with my baby?" Claire smiled. "There's another daughter from the Flotty family. The three of them are always together." Yalvet. "Is that so? Looks like I have to find a chance to visit the Great Bear family." I didn't expect my baby to have learned how to get along with girls. I remember that he had a complete falling out with little Anna when he was young. The eldest princess, Elisha, couldn't help but smile. Children's playfulness doesn't count. Who knows, maybe Anna will become a strong competitor for the Duke's daughter-in-law when she enters the school next semester. Yalvet smiled. Really, my baby has an arranged marriage when he was a child. Elisha didn't care. Duke, there's a popular phrase in the marketplace now. It's called free love. You can't arrange a marriage. Don't talk about my Anna. And Chi personally picked out the date at the Halloween ball. Yalvet. Anna and Chi? On the stage, Anna didn't feel awkward because of her father's loud voice. She even felt that the louder he was, the better. Of course, she was a little girl who already knew how to be reserved, so she couldn't speak loudly. Therefore, she just waved her hand harder. Then, with the reminder of the referee, she turned her attention back to the duel. Commentator Wilson's voice sounded. Today's pace is unexpectedly fast. In the blink of an eye, it's already the fourth duel. As you can see, it's another duel between the first and second years. The red team's contestant is the star of the first year, the apple of the Kingdom Bear's eye, Anna Great Bear. Her father's loud and majestic voice must have left a deep impression on the audience. Now, let's welcome the blue team's contestant, second year, Franco Turner. Franco Turner is also a top student who joined the duel club in the first semester of the second year. His strength is unquestionable. Will this duel be the first year's challenge, or the second year's successful defense? Let's wait and see. As the little princess of the Great Bear family, Anna undoubtedly attracted a lot of attention. In addition, Viscount Great Bear was present. There were always people who wanted to show off in front of the Viscount. Therefore, Anna's voice was very loud. In the corner, old John's eyes lit up. He realized that this was definitely a key character who could make people willing to fork out money. He immediately focused on observing. As the automatic shuffling ended, the exchange before the duel was directly skipped and entered the second half of the preparation stage. Preparation stage. 30s. Both sides drew their cards. Anna blew on her palm and drew her cards. Great. With 5 cards in her hand, she was instantly delighted. Although the ace 3-star magical card, Spirit Bear, was not in her hands, she had Bear's Strength, and another 3-star white card, Orange Bear. These were the products of her warm-up cards when she was preparing for today's duel. Card name, Orange Bear. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Bird/Beast. Attribute, Normal. Magic power, 1400. Attack, 300. Defense, 1600. Ultimate skill, none. Although it was only a white card without any skills, Orange Bear's 3 measurements were very eye-catching. It could be said that it was one of the strongest cards in Anna's hands. Its defense as high as 1600 exceeded the attack of most 3-star magical elves. The full 1400 magic power also made it very resistant to attacks. As for the mere 300 attack, it was obviously the price to pay for the extraordinary 3 measurements. It could only be said that the flaws could not obscure the beauty. Anna's eyes were sharp as she pressed her hand on the magical card. She was born with combat skills and could immediately enter the zone during a duel. On the opposite side, after Franco Turner found out that his opponent was actually from the Kingdom Bears clan, he no longer dared to underestimate her and was abnormally focused. 3s, 2s, 1s, 0s. At the moment when the preparation stage countdown reached 0, the players from both sides immediately began to chant. Franco Turner's summoning speed was obviously faster than Anna's. As the light lit up, a snow-white magical elven that looked like a ball appeared in the blue side's summoning area. Card name, Magical Beast, Snowflake Ball. Type, Elven card. Level, Race, Elemental. Attribute, Ice. Magic power, 100. Attack, 100. Defense, 100. Ultimate skill, Hidden Snow. It's here, contestant Franco's Magical Beast. Wilson tried to make his voice sound as excited as possible so that the atmosphere could be lifted. But before the snowflake ball made its move, he would not say anything unnecessary. Magical beasts are usually the first magical elves that we get in the first grade. But as the little mages grow up, they are often forgotten in the corner of their memory. Obviously, contestant Franco did not. After Franco summoned his magical beast on the blue side's platform, he immediately ordered, "Ball, hidden snow." Suddenly, pure white snowflakes floated around the snowflake ball's body. Its round body that looked like a ball gradually disappeared in the snowflakes. As the figure completely disappeared, the snowflakes fell to the ground, leaving a wet mark. It was actually an invisible magical elven. On the red side's platform, Deanna couldn't help but widen her eyes. Franco obviously came prepared. The first graders lacked experience and basically did not have the ability to see through invisibility. Also, his summoning speed was superior. He could even summon a second magical elven before his opponent attacked the ball. Therefore, starting with a 1-star snowflake was a stable 1-star offering. Next, he looked up at Deanna and quietly waited for the cooldown of his usual summoning spell to end. As for Diana, she was a little late and finally summoned the orange bear. It was a fat orange bear. When it appeared, it sat on the ground. It was about 1.5 meters tall. Its body was fat and full of meat. It looked like it had no mobility. Whether it was its front or back limbs, they looked like decorations. No wonder it only had 300 attack. "Orange Bear, I'll leave the ball to you." After hearing its master's request, Orange Bear let out a meow. Then, it turned around and took the red ball into its arms. Then, it shrunk into a ball. The first grade's usual tactic, crouching while holding the head. It seems like both contestants did not choose to take the initiative in the first round. However, this situation seems to favor the second-year contestant, Franco. I wonder how contestant Deanna will break out of this situation? Wilson took the opportunity to explain and left some suspense. Before he finished speaking, Franco had already summoned his second magical elven. As expected, it was a 3-star elven elf. There's one 1-star elven elf and one 3-star elven elf. All the 4-star offerings have been gathered. In the first round, contestant Doran lost to a magical elven elf that didn't have a second-tier elven elf. I wonder how contestant Deanna will fare? 2 in 1 4,150. Looking for votes. Next chapter. Before and after 12. Chapter 270. Card name, Snow Beast. Type, Elf card. Level, ****. Race, Elemental. Attribute, Ice. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 800. Defense, 1000. Ultimate skill, Howling Ice Wind. The snow that fell from the sky turned into a snow beast with a round head and big ears. Website, https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP. It looked like a clumsy toy that a child had piled up with snowballs. Its 3 measurements were not worth mentioning among 3-star magic guide fairies, but its sure kill skill, Icewind Roar, was a powerful skill with an AoE freezing effect. However, after Franco summoned it, he did not order it to attack. Instead, he focused on waiting for the cooldown of the summoning spell to end. Yes. Among his 5 cards, not only were there 2 sacrificial items, but there was also a 4-star elven card. Summoning a 4-star elven card in one round was the final assessment standard for the second-year students. Franco had obviously reached this level. When he began to cast the sacrificial summoning spell, Deanna finally began to summon her second card. The difference between the first-year and second-year students was vividly reflected in this battle. Deanna looked at her cards. Strength of the Bear was one of her trump cards, but it was obviously useless in the current situation. She had 2 choices now. One was to summon a less powerful elven card, and the other was to give up the summoning in order to preserve the cooldown and wait for the draw card in the second round. However, just like Wilson's explanation, Franco's goal was very obvious. If she waited for him to summon a 4-star elven card, this duel would probably end right away. Therefore, Diana had to choose the first option, which was to summon an elven card. In the contestants' lounge, Dake had been watching the battle from the window. He was also very curious about Diana's response. He had a certain level of understanding about Diana's card deck. However, Diana had obviously recently refined a new magic card and had been hiding it to surprise him. He had been pretending that he did not know. The orange bear from before was very good. He just did not know what other magic cards she had. Then, he suddenly noticed that a small house had appeared in the red team's summoning area. It was a boxy hut built with red bricks. The arched door and 2 windows were made of wood. There was an intricate sign hanging on the door, with the heads of 3 little bears drawn on it. Excluding the roof, the size of the house was a standard 2 by 2 by 2. What magic card is this? Dake was a little confused, because he had never seen such a type of magic card before. It looks like an item card, but something doesn't seem right. While he was pondering, he suddenly noticed that Magical Fantasy Beast, Snowflake Ball, and Snow Beast in the blue side summoning area had turned into light. He's here. Wilson's voice suddenly became louder. The audience's attention was also focused on him. In the eyes of ordinary people, the sacrificial summoning of the magic elf was already mysterious enough. Just seeing the sacrificial summoning would make some people excited for a long time. On the blue team platform, Franco finally revealed a smile. He heard the ticking sound of the turn switch, but he was not in a hurry to draw his cards. Almost at the same time, the sacrificial summoning array lit up. Wind and snow swirled, and 2 furry giant palms came out of the summoning array. Then, with a strong push on the summoning array, a huge upper body appeared in the audience's vision. It's the Snowfield Giant! Someone in the audience cried out excitedly. The hairy Snowfield Giant finally crawled out of the sacrificial summoning array. Its body was 5 to 6 meters tall, and its body was fat. Its belly was big enough to support a boat. Under the long hair was a face and limbs like a gorilla's. The Snowfield Giant raised its arms, clenched its fists, and pounded its chest. An unusually violent aura suddenly rose. The audience's blood began to boil. There were many reasons why the magic duel was popular. One of them was the giant beasts that were not seen in daily life. The bigger and more imposing the giant beast, the more popular it was. For a while, there were even people who were addicted to the thrill of being brushed by the giant beast's killer move over their heads. Of course, because the audience and the duel arena were not in the same dimension, the audience was actually not in danger. Card name, Snowfield Giant. Type, Elf card. Race, Subhuman. Attribute, Ice/Fighting. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 1800. Defense, 1200. Killer move, Mega Avalanche, Ice Wound Fist. Snowfield Giant, kill her. The audience's excitement seemed to have driven Franco's mood. He pointed with his finger and shouted loudly. After the Snowfield Giant heard its master's order, it finally stopped showing off and rushed toward the red team area. It could cross 2 to 3 meters with each step. Its speed did not seem fast, but its actual speed was not slow. However, Diana on the red team platform was unusually calm. She stretched out her hand and drew out 2 new cards, sighing heavily. One of them was a 3-star white card, White Female Boxer, and the other was a 1-star magic card, Fantasy Beast, Polar Bear. Neither of them were cards that could reverse the situation at this stage. Bear bow, when are you coming? Diana pouted and looked at the arena. Different from the commentator, she did not think that she was at a disadvantage to the extent that she needed to rush. Relying on the orange bear's high defense, she could hold on for a while. The second magic elf she summoned, Bear's Den, was also a magic elf card that could hold the situation. So when the Snowfield Giant rushed into the red team area, she still calmly began to summon her third magic elf, White Female Boxer. White Female Boxer was a white card without any skills. Its magic attack and defense were not outstanding. It could be said that it was a 3-star card, but only had 2-star strength. If it was placed in the deck of any high-level duelist, it would definitely be eliminated. But Diana did not have many choices. The only advantage of the white female boxer was that she was of the human race, which could allow her to exert more dexterity than ordinary magic elves, and she could carry out some relatively complicated tactics. No matter what, Diana summoned white female boxer in this round. The white female boxer appeared in the red team summoning area with one knee on the ground. The moment she appeared, she started to run around the arena, trying to rush from the edge of the arena to the blue team area. The blue team's magic ball was still floating in the summoning area, and there were no defensive measures. Although Franco had summoned a 4-star magic guide spirit, he had also sacrificed the previous 2 magic guide spirits. At this moment, if he wanted to protect his own team, he had to summon the snowfield giant back, or summon a new magic elf in time, or use magic to control the magic ball from a distance to avoid the white female boxer's attack. No matter which method he used, it would consume his energy. There were advantages and no disadvantages. In the 120 by 80 arena, there was room for all kinds of tactics to maneuver. A moment later, the white female boxer and the snowfield giant passed by each other. The snowfield giant did not look back and continued to move forward. On the other hand, the blue magic ball suddenly glowed and was forcefully pulled into the sky. The white female boxer, who had successfully interfered with Franco, suddenly stopped and swayed at the edge of the center line of the arena. Although it did not seem to have any practical use, she had indeed executed Diana's strategy perfectly. On the other side, the snowfield giant threw a punch at Orange Bear, who was holding the magic ball. The fat Orange Bear was as small as a child in front of the snowfield giant, but Orange Bear did not dodge and took the snowfield giant's punch. Bang! Orange Bear's thick fat trembled violently, but his magic points that were originally as high as 1400 only decreased by 180 points. It doesn't hurt at all. Diana, who was on the red team's platform, could not help but smile. During the recruitment competition, she had learned a lot from watching the competition. For example, not every 4-star magic guide fairy was as powerful as Darks. For example, some 2-star magic elves were stronger than 3-star magic elves in terms of size. The difference in the distribution of stars and the value was unreasonable. A normal 4-star magic elf would not be able to cause fatal damage to Orange Bear. Franco, who was on the blue team's platform, seemed to have finally noticed this. He quickly ordered, "Snowfield Giant, Ice Wound Fist." Roar! The snowfield giant raised its arm again and clenched its right hand into a fist. Then, from its fist to its elbow, a thick block of ice condensed. With this punch, Orange Bear would probably suffer additional damage. However, at this moment, the 3rd round had already begun. Diana immediately drew her card. "Alright, here it comes." Her eyes lit up and she immediately began to summon Spirit Bear. In her hand, not only did she have Spirit Bear, she also had Strength of Bear. If she could successfully summon these 2 magic elves, the Spirit Bear would have an exaggerated attack of 2,600 points. Strength of the Bear was indeed a strong card that could break the rules. Kaboom! The snowfield giant's ice wound fist violently smashed onto Orange Bear's back. The block of ice on its fist shattered into ice shards and shone brightly under the sunlight. Frostbite appeared on Orange Bear's back. His magic points dropped by 600 points and he was left with 600 points. However, Orange Bear still held on. At this moment, Franco had already calmed down. He realized that a 4-star magic elf would not be able to win this duel. Therefore, after a brief consideration, he began to summon a new magic elf. Although he did not do anything in the 2nd and 3rd round, he did not forget to draw his cards. Therefore, he had plenty of cards in his hand. Since he could not win with one, he would summon another one. First, he summoned a 3-star magic elf. Then, he summoned a 1-star magic elf. During this process, Diana also successfully summoned Spirit Bear. The old giant bear that was condensed with light crashed into the snowfield giant fiercely after it appeared. It actually staggered from the collision. However, the snowfield giant's strength was obviously stronger. It only took a step back before it could stand firmly. Then, Franco gave it a final order: Snowfield Giant, Mega Avalanche. The Snowfield Giant had 2 skills. It was a rare purple card. Both of its skills were explosive attack skills. Ice Wound Fist was a single target skill. Mega Avalanche was an area of effect skill. The Snowfield Giant leaped backward. After it stabilized its footing, its 2 ape arms were like drums as it hammered the ground with force. In an instant, waves of snow rolled out and stacked on top of each other. They were getting taller and taller. Spirit Bear wanted to break through the waves of snow and interrupt the Snowfield Giant's casting. However, it was blocked by the waves of snow and could not move an inch. The waves of snow that were getting taller and taller surged into the sky like a tsunami. Anna, who was standing on the stage, had to look up to see the terrifying waves. As a 4-star magic elf's ultimate skill, Mega Avalanche was too terrifying. The commentators' cheers, the audience's exclamations, and Luo C's cheers were drowned in the waves of momentum. All kinds of voices were heard at the same time. Anna felt a sense of danger. However, she pursed her lips and endured it. Rumble. The momentum of the rising waves of snow was as strong as the momentum of the falling waves. After releasing this ultimate skill, the Snowfield Giant stood on the spot and endured the Mega Avalanche that fell from the sky. Almost half of the red half of the arena was covered by it. The orange bear with only 600 points of magic power was smashed into light spots. The magic sphere's life enchantment was exposed to the Mega Avalanche. Its magic power suddenly dropped and its light dimmed. The spirit bear with 1,400 points of magic power and 0 defense was also smashed into pieces by this terrifying ice energy. This time, it turned into light as soon as it appeared. The bear's den that was summoned in the first round also collapsed under the Mega Avalanche. When the nest is overturned, no egg will remain intact. The Snowfield Giant was also completely swallowed by the Mega Avalanche. A blow that damages the enemy by 1,000 but damages the user by 800. Dake, who was in the contestants' lounge, was excited. The so-called duel should be like this. It should be full of unexpected surprises at all times. I wonder if Anna has any other way to deal with it? Drip. The battle stage entered the 4th round. At this time, in the duel arena, the red half was covered by snow. In the blue half, there were 2 magic elves waiting to be sacrificed. In the middle of the red and blue side, the white female boxer survived. However, as the avalanche ended, the ice and snow melted. The magic elves buried under the snow poked their heads out. The Snowfield Giant dragged its heavily injured body and stood up with difficulty. It had not fallen yet. The red magic sphere was quietly placed on the ground. The life enchantment's light dimmed and only a few hundred points of magic power was left. The reason why it did not shatter directly was that the orange bear used its broken body to take part of the damage. However, when the Snowfield Giant wanted to drag its broken body to give the magic sphere a final blow, 3 round bear cubs crawled out from the melted snow. One of them suddenly charged towards the Snowfield Giant, while the other 2 pushed the red magic conducting ball and ran away. They looked funny and cute. 2 in 1 4,000 words. Next chapter. Chapter 271. Card name, Bear's Nest. Type, Elf card. Level, ****. Race, Bird Beast. Attribute, Normal. Magic power, 300. Attack, 0. Defense, 1,200. Ultimate skill, 3 little bears. The collapsed bear's nest. Remember the website, Vipkanshu. 6 The 3 little bears that were hiding in it. When their shelter was suddenly gone, the 3 little bears didn't panic. Instead, they continued to do their best for their master. However, their magic attack and defense were 100 each, so they couldn't do much. The little bear that was charging towards the Snowfield Giant only hit its head on the Snowfield Giant's ankle and was bounced back by the reaction force, falling on its but on the ground. Although the other 2 little bears tried their best to push the magic ball, their 4 short legs couldn't move fast at all. Their movement speed was terrifyingly slow. Seeing the shadow of the snowfield giant gradually engulfing their bodies, commentator Wilson held his breath. The referee was about to say, "The winner has been decided." Luo Si, who was on the ring, was so nervous that she almost suffocated. Viscountess Greatbell, who was in the audience, couldn't help but hold her husband's hand. Anna's life was like a candle flickering in the wind. In the sky above the duel arena, two contestants shouted almost at the same time. "There are 3 1-star and 1 3-star. With 1 little bear and white female boxer, as the sacrifice, I will summon Bear Treasure. There's a 1-star one and a 3-star one. With Frozen Imp and Snow Sarah Snake, as the sacrifice, I will summon Blue Clown." The magic elf that was used as the sacrifice turned into light and a huge sacrificial summoning array spread out in the sky. 2 4-star magic elves appeared in their respective summoning areas at the same time. What a surprise! First-year contestant Anna also has a second-tier magic elf. However, contestant Franco didn't lose out in the slightest as he summoned his second 4-star magic elf. But Wilson's tone couldn't help but be a little strange. In the red summoning area, what came out of the sacrificial summoning array was actually a little bear cub that was difficult to distinguish among the 3 little bears. The bear cub descended from the sky and sat on the head of the snowfield giant, directly killing it on the spot. Following the sudden explosion of the snowfield giant's body, the bear cub fell to the ground with a plop and bounced up twice with great texture. The sharp-eyed audience was surprised to find that this bear cub, which looked like a bear cub, was actually a very realistic teddy bear plushie. Card name, Xiong Bao, type, elf card, race, undying, attribute, fairy magic power, 1500 attack, 1800 defense, 1000 ultimate skills, Xiong Bao special attack team, Xiong Z substitute, super lollipop. This is? In the contestants' lounge, Dark looked at the teddy bear in surprise. His gaze immediately fell on the teddy bear's chest. There was a round button with a colorful swirl pattern. Although the style had changed, Dake still associated it with the button-like eyes of the zombie teddy bear. That was the Christmas gift he gave to Anna at Christmas. It seems that she used that button as the core material. Dake blinked and couldn't help but think of the bear pillow that was eating dust in the dormitory. With the 4-star magic guide fairy Anna, she was no longer at a disadvantage in terms of lineup. The chance to win this duel had already appeared. But whether she could win the match or not was another matter. After all, her opponent was a second-year student. And Franco's 4-star magic guide fairy didn't seem to be ordinary either. The 4-star magic guide fairy that appeared in the blue summoning area, Blue Clown. It was a strange clown with pale blue skin. Although it was in a human form, it wasn't wearing any clothes. Its pale blue skin was painted with bright oil paint, and it had a big apple-like nose. Below the nose were thick blood-like lips. It was a little comical, but also a little scary. This was Franco's second 4-star magic guide fairy. He only had these 2 4-star magic guide fairies, and he was lucky enough to summon both of them today. If even this failed, then there was no need to play anymore. Franco's gaze swept across the cards in his hand, then he looked up at Xiong Bao in the red summoning area and said calmly, "Blue Clown, card clone." Card name, Blue Clown. Type, fairy card. Race, fairy species. Attribute, super. Magic power, 1400. Attack, 1900. Defense, 700. Ultimate skill, paper card clone, paper card flying dagger. When the blue clown on the field heard its master's order, it stretched out its hand and a deck of cards appeared. Then, it picked out 2 cards, King and Little King. Then, he blew at the 2 cards and flicked them with his finger. The 2 cards flew out to both sides. The colorful King instantly turned into a clone that looked exactly like the blue clown. The black and white Little King turned into a clone that looked like a shadow. 1 clone turned into 3. He just didn't know how much strength the 2 doppelgangers had. Amidst the exclamations of the audience, the blue clown suddenly grabbed King's doppelganger and spun it around a few times. 7-colored light enveloped them and stopped after a while. However, No one could tell which was the main body and which was the doppelganger. Xiao Wang's doppelganger took a step forward, sneaked into the shadow, and disappeared completely. Contestant Franco's blue clown is a very unique magic guide fairy among the 4-star magic guide fairies. I'm sure some of the audience still have an impression of it. As for contestant D. Anna's Xiong Bao, to be honest, as a commentator, this is the first time I've seen it. I hope it can bring us a surprise different from what it looks like. Almost as soon as Wilson's commentary stopped, the 2 blue clowns in the field suddenly leaned forward and dashed forward in the exact same posture. Both of them were extremely fast, and each of them held a card with sharp edges between their right index and middle fingers. The reason why the blue clown's attack was so high was probably because of this card weapon. It gave the audience the feeling that it was an assassin with high attack power. Not only was it agile, but its movement speed was also extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the 2 blue clowns had crossed the center line. Then, they suddenly split up and surrounded the cute teddy bear from both sides. As for the 2 teddy bears that were pushing the magic guide ball, they were completely ignored. Anna's eyes were shining. She was waiting for an opportunity to summon the strength of the bear. At this moment, she said softly to the Xiong Bao card in her hand, "Draw your sword." The Xiong Bao, in the field, suddenly stood up. It then pressed the edge of the button on its chest and pulled it out. The button immediately turned into a colorful lollipop with spiral patterns. Ultimate skill. Super Lollipop. The Xiong Bao, with 3 skills, was an extremely rare orange card. Now that the gold card was extinct, the orange card was the dream of all the duelists. The Xiong Bao was also D. Anna's first orange card. After pulling out the lollipop, Xiong Bao threw it hard. The lollipop melted and transformed into a colorful syrup dagger. The teddy bear that was holding the syrup dagger was emitting an awe-inspiring aura that did not match its appearance. Tick. Until the sound of the 5th round was heard. The 2 blue clowns had just closed the distance between them and Xiong Bao. Their eyes flashed, and almost at the same time, they made a throwing motion. The cards in their hands suddenly blurred and flew out while spinning. Block it! D. Anna's order was suddenly heard. Xiong Bao immediately raised the syrup dagger. The dagger suddenly turned into the original shape of the super lollipop and blocked one of the cards like a shield. Tut! The corner of the card was directly nailed into the super lollipop's candy plate. The huge force made the lollipop shake for a while. Although it blocked one of the cards, it was hit by the other card. A long and narrow wound was directly cut open on the side of its abdomen, revealing the snow-white cotton inside. Fortunately, it was an undying species, so this kind of cut was not painful at all. Xiong Bao held the lollipop tightly and looked around nervously from time to time. Kakik! X2. The blue clown's laughter was heard at the same time. They picked up another card between their 2 fingers. However, they did not shoot the cards again. Instead, they used the cards as weapons and quickly approached from both sides. In an instant, the distance between the 3 parties was less than half a meter. Xiong Bao, who was panicking just now, suddenly became serious and swung the lollipop at the blue clown on the left side. The lollipop turned into a sword in the process and slashed at the knee of the blue clown on the left side at lightning speed. The blue clown inherited the weakness of the assassin with high attack. It was a fragile creature, and its clones were even more fragile than its main body. Xiong Bao's slash cut the leg of the blue clown on the left in half. The heavy injury caused it to explode with a puff. The king card fell in the smoke. However, the blue clown's main body also slashed at Xiong Bao's head. Boom! Xiong Bao's body suddenly exploded, and a broken doll substitute appeared on the spot. Its main body appeared behind the blue clown at random. Attack! After being stunned for a moment, Xiong Bao received the order to attack and slashed with the super lollipop. Just as the scene of the slash being cut in half was about to appear, the blue clown's shadow suddenly moved. The shadow stood upright and blocked the unexpected slash. However, it also exploded into a card with a puff. It was the king card. The situation took a turn for the worse. The blue clown's 2 card clones were destroyed in such a short time. The card throwing knife, that it launched was also blocked by the Super Lollipop. Its 2 sure kill skills had entered cooldown. At this moment, it was Xiong Bao's turn. Xiong Bao's special attack team. Diana's command echoed throughout the arena. Xiong Bao, who had successfully destroyed the card clones, retreated quickly and dodged the blue clown's counterattack. Meanwhile, Xiong Bao, who had distanced himself, suddenly transformed into a small black special attack suit. Then, the other 2 little bears that had escaped from the bear's den were also affected by this sure kill skill and wore 2 white special attack suits. Go, go, go! Xiong Bao raised the syrupy short sword and pointed it with force. The 2 little bears immediately let go of the magic ball and turned around to follow Garen's charge. The 3 little bears formed a team and their aura was strong. A visible phantom of a giant bear appeared behind Xiong Bao and pounced on the fragile blue clown with a roar. Magic summoning! Franco, who was on the blue team's platform, looked serious. He waved the magic card that he had prepared in front of him and shouted at the critical moment. Igloo! A hemispherical igloo made of ice instantly covered the blue clown's body and protected it like a golden bell. However, at the same moment, Diana had also activated Bear's Strength in her hand. Xiong Bao, who was charging at the front, was covered by a layer of extremely dense light. Its body swelled and a violent force spread throughout its limbs and bones. With the support of Bear's Strength, Xiong Bao's attack increased by 300 by 4 and reached a terrifying 3,000. The numbers on the surface were displayed through the magic projection. The audience who saw this terrifying change suddenly exclaimed in shock. Then, a loud boom was heard. Boom! The seemingly sturdy igloo was smashed into pieces by Xiong Bao's special attack team. They continued to charge forward without stopping and turned the blue clown, who had used up a lot of its magic power, into light spots. Franco saw this scene and his vision turned black. He felt dizzy. On the other hand, Diana's face was filled with joy. After this attack, Bear Bao's special attack team disbanded on the spot. The 2 little bears rolled away. Only Xiong Bao continued to charge forward and charged towards the blue team's area. However, at this moment, the blue magic ball was still high up in the sky. Although the commentator, Wilson, was shocked by Diana's violent attack, he still said subconsciously, although the situation has changed, contestant Franco still has the advantage of being a second-year student. His long-range control of the magic ball makes him invincible. However, before Wilson could finish his sentence, he saw Diana on the red team's platform suddenly reach out her hand towards the blue magic ball. She opened her 5 fingers and the tip of her fingers lit up with a flash of magic power. The blue magic conducting ball was pulled down by her magic power, and it fell. Then, Xiong Bao, who had an attack power of 3,000, smashed the magic ball's life enchantment with a lollipop. The life enchantment, which only had 2,000 points of magic power in the newcomers' competition, couldn't even withstand a single blow from Xiong Bao. Boom! In the midst of the magic power fragments that scattered in all directions, the referee's whistle suddenly sounded. The winner has been decided. 2 in 1. Recycle trash. Chapter 272. Diana's victory was like a stimulant that lit up the entire arena. Before the match, no one had expected this first-year girl to successfully challenge someone of a higher grade than her. After all, her opponent was not a newbie who had just joined the club. There was indeed a technical barrier between the first-year and second-year students. Her victory was beyond everyone's expectations. But it was also because of this that the duel was full of charm. Unfortunately, the magic balls in the newcomers' competition had too little mana. As the referee announced Diana's victory, the entire arena and the audience burst into thunderous applause. Luo-Si waved her sign with all her might. She had never been so excited since the beginning of the semester. The first-year students of the Noble Academy also led the applause as if they were the ones who had won the duel. However, the most excited person was Viscount Great Bear, who was sitting in the audience. Remember this. https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP, awoo. Viscount Great Bear stood up abruptly and roared excitedly like a giant bear. He did not expect his stupid daughter to achieve such a result in just half a semester. This was a miracle. Although he had vowed before, he was actually worried that Anna's performance would not be as good as Dolan's. That would be embarrassing and embarrassing. But now, he realized that his daughter might have the talent to lead a new era. Could it be that my daughter is the kind of person who pretends to be stupid? Her usual naivety is just an expression of ignorance? Even the Viscount's wife could not help but think so. She secretly touched the corner of her eyes. This is the daughter of the Great Bear family? She actually won. First Prince Charles, who was originally just watching in boredom, suddenly woke up with a start. The previous duel with Dolan had really bored him. It had even made him think that this was the standard of a first-year student. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to observe the future hero, he would not have wasted his time here. This daughter of the Great Bear family had surprised him. But why is it a female again? In recent years, with the rise of the Valkyrie as the role model for women, the social structure of the entire kingdom had changed greatly. Women's status had gradually increased, and a large number of self-reliant talents had emerged. This situation even gave Elisha the confidence to fight for power with him. The first prince was originally a strong supporter of the traditional aristocratic system, which was why he had gained the firm support of some of the old nobles. He was very displeased with this gradual change in society. On the other hand, Princess Elisa and the others admired Diana very much. This was especially so for Yvette, who knew that Diana was Dark's little friend. She found this child pleasing to the eye no matter how she looked at her. As the saying goes, love me, love my dog. This is probably what it means. But after a while, Yalvette started to wonder why her son hadn't appeared yet. Santa Maria was too inhumane in this regard. She didn't even send a copy of the competition schedule. On the commentary platform, Wilson was embarrassed for a long time. In the end, he congratulated Anna for her victory. Then, he quickly adjusted his mood and fast-forwarded to the next match. The two contestants for the fifth match were already in position at the entrance of the tunnel. It was also a match between a first-year student and a second-year student. After the exciting match between Anna and Franco, the audience had extra expectations for this match. Wilson became even more energetic as he explained. Anna stood on the contestant platform for a long time. The deafening applause and cheers made her feel like she was in a dream. I really won. It wasn't until her father's roar that she suddenly woke up. Then, little by little, a smile bloomed on her face. She faced the direction of the contestant lounge, faced the Luo C in the ring, and faced her parents in the audience. She waved her hands vigorously. Excited. It wasn't until the referee began to urge her that she reluctantly withdrew her magic elf. She carefully put the card deck back into the card bag, and then skipped down the platform. As for Franco, he could still afford to lose 50 credits. Bang! He slammed the card table with force. Franco indicated that he would remember this. He would probably stay in the newcomers' competition for half a year. There would be many opportunities to meet Anna again. While Dake was happy for Anna's victory, he didn't forget to continue to pay attention to the contestants for the fifth match. This time, the first-year contestant was Justin Wayne from the Knights Academy. He was very popular in the Knights Academy, but Dake wasn't very familiar with him. Justin Wayne's deck seemed to be a standard knight series. From human knights, orc knights, goblin wolf riders, to mechanical cavalry, it was basically made up of this type of magic elf. He wasn't weak, and was ranked at the top of the first-year students. Among the 7 first-year duelists, he was probably in the middle. Before a specific battle, Dake couldn't determine the winner. After all, the first-year students were in a period of rapid growth. Just like Anna, after she obtained a 4-star magic elf, she had completed a step forward. Speaking of Anna arrived. She walked briskly back to the contestant lounge, wanting to receive Dake's praise. How is it, my bear treasure? Are you surprised? Anna took out bear treasure and waved it in front of Dake. Dake couldn't help but chuckle. Very good. This should be an orange card, right? Anna immediately nodded. It's the first one. I made it with your Christmas gift. Dake took the opportunity to ask his doubts. Is Bear Treasure's special attack team a sure kill skill that can summon companions? Deanna glanced around and said sneakily, it's like this. Every additional bear cub can increase the attack of the special attack team by 100 points, as well as increase the attack range by 1 unit. Dake was shocked. Is there a limit? Deanna shook her head. I don't know. Some sure kill skills required research and experimentation to be fully understood. Bear Treasure's special attack team definitely had a limit, but this limit was likely related to a Bear Treasure's commanding ability and other factors. If they could find a way to break through this limit and form a special attack team of 100 little bears, then the attack power of this skill would be unprecedentedly terrifying. But it definitely wouldn't be easy. Dake exclaimed, That's amazing. Deanna touched her head and laughed. It's just so-so. Even the temperature became warmer for a while. Dake turned to watch the game with Deanna. Deanna, who had completed the task, relaxed a lot and was able to talk to him about some points of view. Although she looked a little stupid, under the influence of the elders in her family, she was actually more tactically cultivated. Dake actually enjoyed the process of chatting with her. On the field, Justin Wayne actually used a strange magic card to make the 3 knights form a triangular phalanx, which greatly increased the overall attack and defense of the 3 knights, and actually gained the advantage in a short period of time. Unfortunately, his opponent was not to be trifled with. He quickly found an opportunity to kill one of the knights and break the phalanx formation. Then, he took advantage of the opportunity to attack and crush the knights, and finally won. Justin Wayne's performance was very eye-catching, but unfortunately, he didn't succeed like Deanna. The second-year senior breathed a sigh of relief when he won. He was actually under a lot of pressure. After all, he couldn't let the second years lose face. The next 6 to 8 matches were all duels between the second years. The duel between the 2 second years in the 8th match was very intense and exciting, and it once again caused a stir in the audience. Dake also watched very seriously and felt that he had learned a lot. At the start of the 9th match, he took a deep breath and prepared to go on stage. His match was the 10th match, and it was the next match. But just as he was about to retreat from the window, he suddenly noticed that one of the 2 contestants was actually a third-year senior, Angelia. Her opponent, on the other hand, was only a second-year senior. Although senior sister Angelia lacked experience in dueling, she was truly powerful. Dake still remembered that bitter battle very clearly. Is she here to pick up money with a sack? And then, as expected, the 9th match became Senior Angelia's personal show. Dake felt that the situation was set, so he said goodbye to Deanna and walked into the contestants' passage. It was just past 9:30, which was almost the same time as the duel notice. He walked through the long underground passage and came to the red team's contestants' passage. He handed the contestant card to the staff member guarding the passage. First year Dake Dimming? The third-year girl couldn't help but ask. Dake nodded. That's me. The girl couldn't help but chuckle. I remember you. Angelia lost to you in the recruitment competition. Dake smiled. Senior, I really hope that you can remember me for other reasons. Okay. The girl handed the contestant card back to him, but didn't retract her hand. Let's get to know each other. I'm a third-year student from the House of Fools, Angelia's classmate, Demi Charlotte. Dake reached out and shook her hand. Hello, Senior Charlotte. Demi retracted her hand and said, Okay, when Angelia passes by later, you have to pretend that you don't know me. Dake was a little confused. We don't know each other. Deanna is so cute and easy to understand. While waiting, Dake leaned against the wall and continued to watch the match. A minute later, he suddenly noticed that someone was walking out of the contestants' passage on the opposite side. That must be Elsie Kevin, he said. Dake tried to recall the memory in his head. He didn't pay special attention to the senior students, so he didn't know much about this senior from the noble house. But that didn't stop him from meeting him in the common room. Elsie Kevin was only 13 years old. He wasn't ugly, but he had some minor problems from puberty on his face. His behavior was always rigid, and when he appeared in the common room, there were usually 3 or 4 of his peers. And he was always the center of the group. It was obvious that he had a good reputation among the second-year students of the noble house. Dake observed carefully for a while, then suddenly remembered something. He turned to Charlotte and asked, "Senior, do you know him?" Charlotte glanced at Kevin and said casually, "You don't know the winner of the Crimson Star from last year?" "That shouldn't be. I remember that you're this year's Crimson Star." "Ah." Dake looked away. No wonder his name sounded familiar to Panduola. It meant that this senior Kevin had received the trophy at the Halloween party 2 years ago. Although he had won first place in the grade at the Halloween event, it didn't mean that he was the strongest at that time. But it undoubtedly affirmed his strength. At this moment, Elsie Kevin might not be as easy to deal with as Angelia. "I feel like I'm on fire." Dake's eyes glowed. His spirit was clearly different. From his indifferent attitude when the homework was handed out, to his slight interest last night, to his desire to win this morning, until now he was full of fighting spirit. Dake's mentality had gone through many gradual processes. He felt that he was in good shape. At the same time, Elsie Kevin was also observing the situation. He was actually in the process of advancing to the next round. He didn't want to get involved in this mess. In order to advance from the newcomers' competition to the main competition, he needed to accumulate 100 points and win 3 matches in a row. Each win would give him 10 points, and each loss would deduct 10 points. Kevin wanted to enter the main competition this semester to hone himself, so he applied to advance last week. He had already won 1 match, and he still needed 2 more. He wanted to win these 2 matches steadily. He didn't want to complicate matters. But sometimes, some things were hard to refuse. After all, Kevin had joined the Aristocratic History Research Society and gained a lot from it. It was reasonable that he could only follow the president's wishes. "Then I'll participate." At that time, he thought that his opponent was only a first-year student. Although this first-year student seemed to be somewhat of a supermodel, he was still one of the top second-year students. He was more or less confident. The aristocratic arrogance engraved in his bones made him feel that he wasn't inferior. They were both in the aristocratic academy, and he had studied for an extra year. There was no reason for him to lose. Their gazes collided in the air, but there were no sparks. Instead, the referee whistled. The duel between Angelia and the second-year student finally came to an end. Angelia, who came down from the red team's platform, was surprised to see Dake at the entrance. She stopped and greeted him, her voice full of regret. "Bad luck, I didn't run into you." Doc blinked his eyes. 150 credits are in my hands." Angelia smiled again. "Yes, I got another book." Then she continued walking, leaving only a wisp of bamboo-like fragrance behind her. Dake was a bit confused. What book costs 150 credits? Is it a limited edition signed collector's edition? Charlotte smiled. Sometimes, the ancient bookstore opened by the goblins on Traveler's Street will auction some of the original copies. You can try your luck there. 2 in 1. Chapter 273. I'll go take a look when I have time. Dake replied politely and walked out of the tunnel. He could feel that when he stepped out of the tunnel, a lot of eyes were focused on him. Of course, it wasn't because he was too handsome. Even if there was, it would only occupy a small part of the attention. However, he didn't look around. That would be too inelegant. Dake calmly walked up the stairs of the contestant platform. Only then did he naturally turn his head to look at the ring. When he was in the contestant lounge, because of the angle, he couldn't see Panduola's figure. But at this time, when he climbed to the top, he naturally found that familiar figure. Panduola was wearing a winter uniform with a thick scarf around her neck and gloves. It could be said that she was fully armed. But the bloated clothes couldn't hide her unique temperament. Around her, there was a circle of empty seats. Website: https://m. Vipkanshu. VIP. As if she noticed Dake's gaze, Panduola raised her hand and waved in his direction. Her long eyelashes were unusually bright in the morning light. "There's one more reason to win." Dake raised his hand to his chest and waved in that direction. Then he quietly made an OK gesture and continued to walk up to the red team's platform. On the contestant platform, he looked at the audience. In the ring below, Luo Si once again raised the Panda Heart Suit Cat sign. Dolan, Piston, and the others could also be seen near her. The next moment, Dolong suddenly ran to the side. He held the edge of the red banner in one hand and Pitten held the other. As Doran ran, a huge banner rolled and unfurled. There was nothing extra written on it. It just said, "Dake. Dake. Must win. Must win. You guys are really something." Dake helplessly curved his eyes. Then he slightly raised his head and looked at his mother and Aunt Claire in the front row of the audience. As for the Princess Elisha, he ignored her. "He's looking over. My baby is looking over. Shouldn't I greet him now?" Arvette's face was flushed. Then, she recalled Viscount Greatbell's greeting, and couldn't help but ask. The eldest princess's expression froze. She hurriedly grabbed her hand and dissuaded her. "Duke, I feel that the eyes are the window to the soul. With your relationship with Dake, I'm sure you'll be able to convey your thoughts to him as long as you look at him." Arvette blinked and suddenly said, "First Princess, you don't really think that I'll imitate that bear, right?" The eldest princess, really? Arvette covered her mouth and chuckled. "I'm already very satisfied to be able to see my baby appear on stage." His complexion looked better than when he was at home. It seemed that the halfling chefs were still as dedicated as ever. At the very least, his picky eaters should be much better now. Only then did the eldest princess secretly heave a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that the Valkyrie's brain would cramp and she would forget about aristocratic etiquette. After all, this was a public place, so they still had to pay attention to what they should. Meow. On the other side, Claire accidentally pinched Galileo's flesh. She wondered where Dake's zoo had gone. Had he received her paradise? The golden-haired boy looked over with a nostalgic expression. The sunlight from the sky illuminated his skin and made it look unusually white. He waved in the direction of Arvette and Claire. He finally understood how Anna felt at that time. The nostalgia of humans for family would not weaken with age. On the contrary, the more mature a person was, the more they would understand the preciousness of family. It was just that Arvette didn't wave at him, which made him feel slightly disappointed. However, this thought disappeared in the blink of an eye. As the whistle sounded, he turned his attention back to the duel. He casually pressed down on the card table and injected magic power. The card table was reactivated, and the magic projection device was activated. Dake took out the pre-adjusted cards from his card pack and placed them in the card slot. He quietly waited for the automatic shuffling to begin. "Is this the only son of the Dimming family?" Prince Charles frowned as he looked at Dake, who had received extremely loud cheers as soon as he appeared. He was puzzled. In his impression, Dake Dimming was still a spoiled, hedonistic son. He wasn't disgusted by this, but he felt that such a child would help to slow down Arvette's footsteps. But now, it seemed that his study in the Shangmalian had allowed him to grow up. That kind of natural temperament that flowed out naturally couldn't fool anyone. The eldest prince had a certain degree of confidence in his own vision. The Shangmalian is indeed the cradle that has nurtured countless heroes. He sighed slightly. In fact, the Academy of the Holy Church was stricter in this aspect, but he was still inclined towards the Shangmalian Academy. Most people in the kingdom were like this. Now, he chose the Academy of the Holy Church as his backing only because of ZZ considerations. Between two transcendental forces, he had to choose one. He withdrew his thoughts and this time, he became more alert. He had to see if the Valkyrie's son would become a threat to him. It's about to start. In the ring, the president of the Aristocratic History Research Society, Angus Jeffrey, was chatting casually with Mike Owen. Elsie Kevin was different from all the newcomers who had fought before. Simply put, they were on two completely different levels. He wasn't worried that Kevin would lose at all. It was just that today's audience was a little too big. He even found his father in the crowd. Earl Geoffrey was from the Iron Prince's faction, which was the main reason for his ZZ tendencies. I hope the feeling of being abused under the eyes of thousands of people won't leave a psychological shadow on this young duke. It's a sin, a sin. Beep. With the sound of the whistle, the highly anticipated duel finally began. The usual exchange, trash talk, during the preparation stage was directly skipped. Both sides were not the kind of people who couldn't control their mouths. Everything depended on the duel. Oh, it's hard to imagine such a coincidence. Today is really a new day. Now, please allow me to make a brief introduction of the two contestants. In the red arena is our beloved Valkyrie, the only son of the Honorable Duke, Dake Dimming. He is also the winner of the Crimson Star in this year's Halloween event. Student Dake Dimming is a supermodel in the first grade. He once defeated a third-grade student in the recruitment competition. He is the most eye-catching new star in this year's Aristocratic Academy. And in the blue arena, contestant Elsie Kevin is not inferior. He comes from the ancient Kevin family and is also the winner of the Crimson Star. Of course, it was in the previous year. The two winners of the Crimson Star in the previous year can meet in the newcomer competition. This is a coincidence among coincidences. Wilson shouted shamelessly, making the already enthusiastic atmosphere even more exciting. Who will have the last laugh between the two of them who are one grade apart? The duel won't give in because of your age. Let's wait and see. Clap, 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 clap. Wilson applauded himself. Preparation stage, 30s. When the 30-second countdown appeared on the panel, the atmosphere in the audience was even more excited. The atmosphere in the duel arena, however, was instantly stagnant. Whether it was self-confidence or pride. Once the duel began, outside factors were not included in the calculations. Both contestants held their breaths the moment they drew their cards. They counted to 5 in their hearts. Each contestant drew 5 cards at once and then spread them out in a fan shape. The next starting strategy would be thought out in the 30 seconds of the preparation stage. Dake looked at his cards. In the newcomer competition, where the Magic Ball's life enchantment only had 2,000 points of magic power, he actually had a set of sure kill combinations. However, it seemed that he would not be so lucky today. But it was not bad either. Kettle, Magical Beast, Ibu, Greed 2, Milk Can, Flicker Spell. Starting with Kettle, he sat firmly on the fishing platform. Kettle, with a defense value of 2,200, was simply an iron wall that could not be broken by a 3-star magic fairy. Its only disadvantage as a main tank was its size. The main reason why its use was limited was that it could not protect the magic ball with its body. However, as a magic mage that controlled both offense and defense, Kettle had a terrifying dominance on another level that was worthy of being a gold card. Even if the Great Sin 3 series that Dake wanted the most did not appear among the 5 cards in his starting hand, with Kettle, there was no need to worry. If possible, he did not want to use Kettle as a sacrifice to summon Milk Can. Therefore, in this first round, he mainly focused on defense. After a short period of strategic thinking, the 30-second countdown passed in the blink of an eye. Tick. The duel entered the battle stage. Both contestants started summoning at the same time. The normal summoning in the first round was the best way to show a duelist's basic skills. Dake's basic skills were based on both hard work and talent. Every day when he woke up, his magic power would increase a little, making it easier for him to convert his hard work. It had only been a week since the last recruitment competition, and he had already shortened the normal summoning time by a few tenths of a second. He was very close to the final limit of 3 seconds. However, Senior Kevin was also worthy of being the winner of the Crimson Star. Their summoning times were very close. Affected by conditions and other factors, this was more or less the limit that an ordinary student could reach. It's decided on you, Kettle. Dake pointed with his finger, and a white light shot out from the card's surface and landed right in front of the red magic ball. The Kettle Bug, with soft limbs and a hard shell, appeared on the field. Although the Kettle Bug was a rare magic fairy, it was very famous in the duel arena. After all, There were always some media outlets that liked to create eye-catching rankings. The Kettlebug had a terrifying defense and was at the top of the first-tier Magic Fairy defense rankings. Therefore, when it appeared, it attracted a lot of attention. On the blue platform, Kevin frowned slightly. He felt that this was going to be tricky. In his summoning area, a square-headed machine was slowly taking shape. It's confirmed. It's a magic fairy that I've never seen before. Dake was ashamed of his limited knowledge and carefully observed the square-headed machine. This magic fairy was named Machine Component Core. The word core was engraved on its square-headed forehead. Its head took up about half of its body, and the body that extended out from under its head was short and thin. Its arms and legs were like springs, and only the joints were solid. There was a circular groove on the upper part of its body, which seemed to be able to put some kind of special component. Card name, Machine Component, Core. Type, Fairy Card, Level, Race, Machine. Attribute, Steel. Magic Power, 100 Attack, 100 Defense, 100 Sure Kill Skill, Perfect Assembly. Among the magic fairies summoned at the start, it was very rare to see a one-star existence. However, for duelists who usually summon fast enough, they had the confidence to summon a second magic fairy in a short time. After a little more than 3 seconds, Kevin had already begun to summon his second magic fairy. However, Dake didn't continue to move. Immediately after, Kevin's second magic fairy appeared beside Machine Component, Core. It was a square-headed machine that was more than 3 times bigger than Machine Component, Core. It was a large machine that looked almost the same as Machine Component, Core. It was called Machine Component, Giant, and the word Giant was engraved on its forehead. Card name, Machine Component, Giant. Type, Fairy Card. Level, Race, Machine. Attribute, Steel. Magic Power, 500. Attack, 100. Defense, 1000. Sure Kill Skill, Perfect Assembly. Assemble, Machine Component. Kevin's command was amplified by the loudspeaker. It would have been better if he had an impassioned tone, but his tone was very calm. Therefore, to make up for this, Wilson said. The commentator, Wilson, said excitedly, "It's here. Elsie Kevin's signature magic elf, a mechanical component. A machine component that can be freely assembled has amazing charm. Relying on the stacking of components, it can even break through the upper limit of the ladder." Under the background music of the commentator, the machine component, Core, whose head was as big as a soccer ball, suddenly jumped onto the head of Machine Component, Giant. The part below its head directly inserted into the head of Machine Component, Core, leaving only half of its cylindrical body to form the neck. Kevin's 2 machine components transformed into the 3-star Machine Component, Giant Core. Card name, Machine Component, Giant Core. Type, Fairy Card. Level, Heavy Checkmark, Heavy Checkmark, Heavy Checkmark. Race, Machine. Attribute, Steel. Magic Power, 600. Attack, 200. Defense, 1100. Sure Kill Skill, Perfect Assembly, Giant Core Impact. It can actually do this? Dake blinked subconsciously. He was really shocked. Thinking about how he owed so many favors to create a fusion card, this senior Kevin's magic fairy could be fused just by summoning it. It was really unfair. However, the feeling of being fused with a robot was really cool. It was just that there were still no changes to its spring legs. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look like it was very mobile. Therefore, he only took precautions and was not too anxious. However, right after that, Kevin's command sounded word by word. Aim, Giant Core Impact. The body part of Machine Component, Giant Core, suddenly rotated and sunk inwards. A cylindrical groove appeared, and then a white light flashed, dazzling and eye-catching. This assembled machine component was actually a cannon. Pum! A huge roar shook the entire audience. A thick and long dazzling beam of light blasted towards the red team from the front. The distance of 100 meters was crossed in the blink of an eye. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo's 4 limbs suddenly stood up, using its body to block the magic ball behind it. That beam of light instantly hit its abdomen shell, and then a trace of scorch appeared. Hoo-hoo's magic value decreased by 1. Wilson wanted to take advantage of this atmosphere to say something, but when the words reached his mouth, he suddenly stopped. In the audience, many people sucked in a breath because of this. On the blue team's platform, Kevin's gaze was also solemn. Although he had expected this outcome, when he saw it for himself, he was still shocked by the terrifying defense of this hoo-hoo bug. "Don't be too proud. This is just a probing attack." Kevin gritted his teeth slightly, as if he wanted to explain to someone. Then, he pulled out another magic card and performed the 3rd summoning. Magic summoning, eggshell armament. In an instant, a silver egg with a metallic luster fell from the sky. Just as it was about to hit the ground, cracks suddenly appeared on the surface of the silver egg. Crack. Eggshell armament was instantly activated. It turned into pieces of metal eggshells, spinning at high speed in the air. But it was different from what some people had expected. The eggshell armament did not attach itself to the mechanical components. Instead, it surrounded the blue magic conducting ball. Whoosh, a strange sound could be heard. The fragments of eggshell armament suddenly shrank, and every piece of eggshell was attached to the blue magic ball's life barrier. A few seconds later, a silver egg tightly wrapped around the magic ball appeared in sight. Without a doubt, it gave the magic ball a considerable degree of defense. As we all know, the magic ball's life barrier is very fragile and has no defensive ability. But contestant Elsie Kevin used a miraculous item card to make it no longer fragile. I'm sure contestant Dake Dimming is very surprised. Wilson adjusted his mentality and continued to explain. On the red team's platform, Dake was indeed surprised. He originally thought that the eggshell was like AI Ma's gold coin bug, which could be further integrated with machine component, giant core, to make it even cooler. But it seemed that was not the case. Then it was not important. Although it was necessary to protect the magic ball, it would not affect the battle too much. Tick. The time changed to the 2nd round. Dake quickly drew a card and opened it. Magic Beast, Polymorph. Bliss 3, here it comes. Dake's eyes fell on Bliss 3, and he had a plan in his mind. The 2 machine components that Senior Kevin summoned in the 1st round were very unique, but in reality, it also exposed the characteristics of his system. But the 5 cards in his hand did not seem to be enough to support his system completely. The card draw in the 2nd round was very likely to be an opportunity to change the situation. If Dake did not have enough countermeasures, he would be at a disadvantage. But fortunately, the appearance of Bliss 3 gave him a choice, and it was 2 choices. Magic Beast, Ibu. Magic Beast, Polymorph. These 2 magic beasts could be strengthened with Bliss 3. The appearance of a 4-star magical fairy was enough to deal with the situation. Senior Kevin's magical fairy seems to be mainly of the steel element. Fairy Ibu's fairy element is restrained by the steel element. I'll choose Polymorph. It was a simple choice. At the beginning of the 2nd round, Dake used a normal summoning spell to summon Magic Beast, Polymorph. When the card of Magic Beast, Polymorph, was displayed on the projection. On the commentary platform, commentator Wilson could clearly see the card and couldn't help but cry out in surprise, "It's actually a magic beast." Contestant Dake Dimming actually summoned his starter magical fairy in the 2nd round. Let's look forward to seeing what's so special about his magic beast. In the front row of the audience, Valkyrie Yvette clasped her hands together and said nervously, "Is this my baby's starter magical fairy? Why does it look a bit like a slime monster?" Don't be misled. Claire shook her head and said, "Dake's starter magical fairy is another magic beast." Yvette. Eh? He has 2 magic beasts? Claire smiled. We usually think that the first magic beast is the best reflection of a person's characteristics. Dake's starter magical fairy is the same. I think you'll be able to see it soon. Yvette sighed. You still like to keep people in suspense. Saying this, she looked at the arena with worry in her eyes. The light purple slime monster stood up on Kettle's carapace and swayed its soft body with a cheerful expression. The first-grade students still remembered this magic beast vividly. Some of them couldn't help but reveal strange expressions. If one had to choose which one to want among Dake's magical fairies, the polymorph would definitely be at the top. Those who didn't understand would never know how enviable this magical fairy was. For example, on the blue platform, Elsie Kevin could only look on with a dumbfounded expression. The two magical fairies Dake summoned were each more weak than the other. It made him regret not forming a fast attack deck. However, it wasn't too late to speed up the pace. After Dake, Kevin summoned his third magical fairy, Mechanical Component, Extremity. Card name, Mechanical Component, Extremity. Type, Fairy Card, Level, Race, Mechanical. Attribute, Steel. Magic Power, 500, Attack, 1000, Defense, 100. Killing Skill, Perfect Assembly. The mechanical component with the symbol Extremity carved on its forehead had a cylindrical body of nearly 2 meters. Its 4 limbs and facial features stood on its body. Although it was also a steel-type magical fairy, this mechanical fairy was very soft, like a huge rice cake. Its appearance was truly somewhat comical. However, the second-year students who had some understanding of Kevin's set of cards were already in high spirits. The opposition between the first and second grades had been created long before the start of this match. The commentator, Wilson, was even more excited. It's actually the third mechanical component. Appear, a combination that surpasses the ladder. The guardian of the super-ancient civilization, Mechanical Guard. On the blue platform, Kevin's face was filled with black lines, but he still gave the order under Wilson's command. Perfect Assembly, Mechanical Guard. The newly summoned Mechanical Component, Extremity, immediately jumped onto Mechanical Component, Giant Core Shoulder and assembled horizontally, forming 2 thick and powerful arms. A layer of white light flashed, and the killing skill, Perfect Assembly, was successfully activated. The mechanical body that was assembled from 3 mechanical components instantly fused perfectly under the effect of the killing skill. The entire body became more coordinated and had more power. Card name, Mechanical Guard. Type, Fairy Card. Level, Race, Mechanical. Attribute, Steel. Magic Power, 1100. Attack, 1200. Defense, 1200. Killing Skill, Perfect Assembly, Giant Core Transformation. It's starting. In the ring, the president of the Aristocratic History Research Society, Angus Jeffrey, suddenly revealed a slightly smug smile. Each of Kevin's mechanical components could undergo perfect assembly. If the number reached 3, and the star level was above 3, he could assemble a Mechanical Guard. And the Mechanical Guard that was assembled from the 3 mechanical components, Extremity, Giant, and Core, was a full 5-star magical fairy. At the beginning of the second round, the summoned 5-star magical fairy could crush a first-grade student. Even if he had some supermodels, it wouldn't be too difficult. What a pity. Jeffrey sighed again. Mike Owen was puzzled. Why did you sigh? Jeffrey sighed and said, It's too fast. If it was defeated under the condition of using all its strength, the effect would be better. Owen laughed. President, you really have a bad taste. Jeffrey said, I'll take it as a compliment. The assembled Mechanical Guard had a big upper body and a small lower body. It actually looked a little clumsy and didn't have the aura of a 5-star magical fairy at all. Dake could only try to figure it out from its appearance and casually activated Bliss 3. The pink light focused into a beam of light under the control of magic power. Dake pointed Bliss 3 at the variety monster, and the beam of light shone on the body of the variety monster like a stage light. Since confirming that the Great Sin series of magic cards could indeed help other magical fairies to gain intelligence, Dake paid special attention. The variety monster was bathed in the light of Bliss, and the Bliss emblem quickly lit up on its forehead. When the emblem was formed, the beam of light was instantly absorbed, leaving only a faint hint of ambiguous aura in the air. As for the polymorph monster, It had been upgraded from a 1-star Magic Guide Fairy to a 4-star Magic Guide Fairy. The Sure Kill skill, Transformation, was also ready. Dake tapped his fingers on the card table, thinking quickly. Abandoning the thought of a quick attack, he wanted to control this duel more carefully. Senior Kevin's 3-in-1 assembly was indeed cool, and Wilson's commentary was also loud enough. However, before the mechanical guard could really perform, Dake still needed to carefully weigh whether it was qualified enough to be copied by the variety monster. Soon, Elsie Kevin responded to his expectations. Under Kevin's command, the mechanical guard finally took the initiative to attack. It jumped with its short, spring-like legs and rushed to the red team's summoning area. To be honest, it was quite rhythmic. Dake quickly covered his mouth to prevent himself from laughing out loud. When the mechanical guard ran past the center line, the second round had already ended. Tick. The match entered the third round. Dake touched the deck, and his fingertips touched a trace of coldness. It was also at this moment that it seemed that the horn had been blown. The center of the mechanical goddess body suddenly lit up with a dazzling, strong light. Extreme Giant Nuclear Transformation. Elsie Kevin's indifferent and calm voice sounded clearly. The mechanical guard began to transform in the strong light. First, the square body in the middle began to expand outward, followed by the 4 limbs and the head. Double, double, triple. With every step the mechanical guard took, it doubled in size. However, after it took 3 steps, it had already grown to 3 times its original size. Its original height of less than 2 meters was now more than 5 meters. The appearance of the huge mechanical guard made the audience finally have the urge to cheer. This duel between the 2 Crimson Stars seemed to have truly begun from this moment. Crush them, mechanical guard. Elsie Kevin's voice also fluctuated. The mechanical guard, which had changed from spring-like legs to giant spring-like legs, suddenly squatted down and then used the force to spring up. Its huge body actually flew up. Its figure instantly exceeded the height of the contestant stage, and its shadow under the sunlight swallowed the 2 small magic elves in the field. The audience's exclamations suddenly surged like a wave of heat. The Valkyrie was so nervous that she subconsciously grabbed the first princess's thigh, causing the first princess's face to distort. Really? Looks like it's qualified. Dake raised his head and muttered in a low voice. In the field, the polymorph, which was swaying its waist, suddenly looked serious and jumped forward from Huhu's back. Come on, transform in front of thousands of people. Under the astonished gazes of thousands of people, the small polymorph, like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, pounced on the huge mechanical guard descending from the sky. Then its body quickly expanded like a balloon. In just a short breath, whether it was the size, the corners, or the details, it was perfectly replicated. A huge mechanical guard that was exactly the same as the mechanical guard from below. The audience exclaimed. The fantasy beast, polymorph, in Dake's hand also showed its 3 measurements at this time. Magic power, 800. Attack, 2,400. Defense, 2,400, 4-in-1. Chapter 274. This is. Dake looked at the magic card in his hand. After the polymorphic monster became a 4-star monster, its magic power increased from 100 to 400. But now, its magic power had doubled. From this, he guessed that the mechanical guard's ultimate skill, Colossal Nuclear Transformation, could not only make it gigantic, but it could also double its 3 attributes. But if that was the case, this mechanical guard's original attack and defense were only 1,200? Dake suddenly had an ominous feeling. Bang! The sound of a violent collision interrupted his thoughts. Remember the website, Vipkanchu. VIP. The polymorphic monster that jumped up from below hit the mechanical guard that fell from the sky. Both sides' attack and defense were exactly the same, but the mechanical guard had the advantage of its potential and slammed the polymorphic monster down. Rumble! 2 lumps of iron rolled on the ground, and neither could do anything to the other. Kettle's eyes lit up as she guarded the magic ball. But after thinking about it, she did not take action. On the commentary platform, Wilson's mouth was wide open, and he was speechless. He was already in his 4th year, but he had never seen such a cheat-like magical elf. Was that a copy transformation just now? The same question appeared in almost everyone's mind. It was not that there were no similar spells and ultimate skills. But wasn't that a magical beast? And looking at how the polymorphic monster and the mechanical god were fighting fiercely, this transformation was a perfect transformation without any attribute reduction. No, there should be some restrictions that can't be seen on the surface, such as star level, time, and other factors. Eldest Prince Charles's gaze gradually became serious. The Archbishop beside him finally opened his eyes and said, "There is no such thing as a perfect transformation in this world." The eldest prince nodded slightly and relaxed a little. The Archbishop was never one to lie. Since he was able to say such a thing, he naturally had proof. In the ancient books collected by the Holy Church, there were records of gods who had the divine power of transformation. But even that god could not transform into any species 100% of the time, let alone humans and the magical elf created by humans. Dake Diming's magical beast must be the same. On the other side, the eldest princess's reaction was completely different from the eldest prince's. The first princess finally heaved a sigh of relief because Yarvet retracted her claws from her thigh. As for the Valkyrie herself, she was visibly excited. There was nothing more delightful than witnessing the growth of his baby. Who cared if it was a transformation or a copy? As long as it was her precious son's magic guiding spirit, the more powerful it was, the better. Somewhere in the ring-shaped belt, Panduola was slightly surprised. He suddenly felt that this junior brother of his still had a lot of things to discover. It was simply an endless treasure trove. Diana, on the other hand, had slipped to Luo Ci's side. She snatched Luo Ci's sign and waved it vigorously. The heart on the sign was unusually bright. On the side, Dolan and Pittan were swinging the banner like waves. He was just worried that Dake wouldn't be able to handle it, but now he felt that his worries were groundless. Dake. Victory! Victory! The first years of the aristocratic courtyard suddenly shouted, attracting a lot of attention. It was not far from them. The president of the Aristocratic History Research Society looked over in disgust. He felt that this batch of aristocratic academy students were all useless. And as one of the parties involved, Elsie Kevin, was more serious than anyone else. He exerted force with 2 fingers, and the veins on the back of his hand popped out. A magic guiding duel had very high demands on the thinking of the duelist. It was extremely difficult to analyze the situation and come up with a countermeasure in just a few seconds. And it wasn't as if you could complete a few summonings in one round and use a few magic guiding cards. Just like now. This was the first time Elsie Kevin had encountered an opponent with the ability to copy and transform. He had no idea about the characteristics of the polymorph monster, so it was difficult for him to find a way to deal with it. In the end, he could only rely on his own guesses and hypotheses, using the mentality of a gambler to bet on a possibility. He took out 2 cards from the top of the deck and added them to his hand. Then, he chose one of them and began to summon it. On the red team's platform, Dake also added 2 magic guiding cards to his hand. These 2 magic guiding cards, one was Bliss 3, Moon, the other was Pride 2. Although Bliss 3, Moon, had a lot of flaws, its value in critical moments was not weak. Pride 2 was needless to say. Unfortunately, the only magic guiding spirit he had that could be used with these 2 magic guiding cards was Illusory Beast, Ibu. So, these 2 magic guiding cards could only be considered passable for this round. However, based on the current situation, the battle between the polymorph monster and the mechanical guard would not be easy. It was estimated that it would not be a problem to last until the next round. But just as he was thinking, he subconsciously looked up and suddenly saw a beam of light suddenly shoot out from the player platform opposite him. After shooting out more than 10 meters, the beam of light turned into a solid object. It was a disc-like item that looked somewhat familiar. Mechanical God. Elsie Kevin's shout was transmitted here through the loudspeaker. The mechanical guard that was fighting endlessly with the polymorph monster suddenly broke free and stood up with force. Under the guidance of magic, the disc-like item shot directly into the mechanical guard's neck. It was only then that Dake suddenly remembered that there was a circular groove in the mechanical guard's neck. After the mechanical guard went through gigantism nuclear transformation, the circular groove in its neck also became larger. When the disc shot into it, it was not tight. But after it came into contact with it, it actually became larger and finally fit together seamlessly, as if it had completed the assembly. At that moment, the mechanical guard's eyes lit up with a red light. The disc on its neck also flickered with a red light. That red light gradually overflowed and dyed the mechanical guard's entire body red. The polymorph monster tilted its head in place and thought for a moment. Then, it immediately waved its thick arms and fiercely slammed forward. However, this time, when the mechanical guard also used its arms to meet the attack, it had the upper hand in terms of strength. Bang! The polymorph monster was actually pushed to the ground. The situation suddenly changed. Dake frowned fiercely. He realized that the disc was very likely some kind of exclusive item that could increase the mechanical guard's 3 attributes. And the polymorph monster's transformation could not replicate this kind of additional item. But he glanced at the magic guiding card in his hand and immediately began to summon. In just a little over 3 seconds, the surface of Illusory Beast, Ibu, lit up. "I'm counting on you, little Ivan," Dake muttered silently. Not long after Ibu-chan materialized and landed, he began to cast the second normal summoning spell. This time, the target was a magic guiding card that he had already obtained, Greed 2. The entire process did not take more than 10 seconds. Greed 2's blue light poured into Ibu-chan's body. It raised its head slightly, and a purple emblem appeared on its forehead. Power continuously poured out from it, causing its star level to increase from 1 star to 2 stars. Card name, Illusory Beast, Ibu. Type, Elven card. Level, Race, Bird/Beast. Attribute, Normal. Magic power, 500. Attack, 700. Defense, 300. Ultimate skill, Imitation, Round Eyes, Desire. Squeak. After rising in stars, Ibu immediately rushed toward the huge and terrifying mechanical guard with its short little legs. As the mechanical guard was not far ahead, it ran to the mechanical guard's feet in a few steps, and then gently touched its toes. Just as the commentator and audience were guessing what this little Ibu was doing, the red light on the mechanical guard's body suddenly disappeared. On top of Ibu-chan's meat pad, a red disc appeared out of thin air. The next moment, the variable face monster suddenly bent down and reached out to grab the red disc, and then pressed it into its neck with a "pa" sound. The dazzling red light suddenly lit up. At this moment, Elsie Kevin's face was already uncontrollably distorted. Commentator Wilson's words were stuck in his throat, and he almost choked on them. Whether it was the people in the ring or the audience, they all had a strange and indescribable feeling in their hearts. However, the duel on the field would not be interrupted because of this. The variable face monster that was emitting red light had both its attack and defense values increased. Although it only had an attack value of plus 300 and a defense value of plus 100, it was enough to completely suppress the mechanical guard. Bang! A punch landed. The mechanical guard staggered back. The variable face monster chased after it and unceremoniously punched its chin. This punch was powerful and heavy, and it directly blasted the mechanical guard backward. It did not have the slightest bit of martial virtue. Another punch landed, and it was completely knocked down. It was only because the mechanical guard's current magic value was as high as 2,200 that it did not disappear on the spot. However, if this continued, it would only be a matter of time. Once the mechanical guard's magic value fell too low, even if it was used as a sacrifice to summon a new 5-star magic guide spirit, there would be a high chance of failure. The entire situation was undoubtedly reversed again. It was like a turn-based battle, you punch, I punch. However, the audience actually liked this kind of duel the most. According to them, it should be Elsie Kevin's turn to make a move now. However, how would Elsie Kevin make a move? No one understood his magic guide spirit better than him. The variable face monster that had taken the red disc from him already had an attack and defense that surpassed 5 stars. It was not something that could be casually summoned or used 1 or 2 magic guide spirits or 1 or 2 magic cards to reverse the situation. Kevin swept his hand once again and found that all he could summon were cannon fodder. He could not help but want to hammer the table heavily. However, he resisted. Next round. Next round. Another magic illusion beast. Arvette's eyes lit up as she looked at little Ivan in the arena. She could not help but ask, "Claire, is this baby's initial magic illusion beast?" Claire smiled mysteriously. "How is it? Is it particularly compatible with Dake's characteristics?" Arvette exchanged glances with her, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Everything was understood without words. Tick. The 4th round. Both parties drew their cards at the same time. 2 more cards appeared in Dake's hand. They were Curse Cage, Little Evil Magic Beast, and Fairy Ivan. At this time, he had a total of 6 cards. They were Curse Cage, Little Evil Magic Beast, Fairy Ivan, Bliss 3 Month, Pride 2, Big Milk Jar, Flicker Curse. I already have 2 4-star Magic Guide cards, but I lack a low-star sacrifice. It's not worth it to use a Little Evil Magic Beast as a sacrifice. I need a Trash Slime or a 2-star Ball Sea Lion. Dake's eyes flashed. Using whatever he had was actually a bad strategy. Adapting to the situation and changing according to the situation was the best strategy. At this time, he had to be patient. 30 seconds was not long. The polymorph monster did not even manage to kill the mechanical guard. The competition had already entered the 5th round. During this period, Elsie Kevin was obviously weighing something and did not move at all. And at the moment when the round changed, Kevin then added the 2 new magic cards to his hand. Then, a smile bloomed on his originally slightly distorted face. "I've gathered all of them. I'll start with you." Magic Guide Summoning, Mechanical Component, Crack. White light shot out from the card surface and shone on the blue side summoning area. Mechanical Component, Crack, made its appearance. It was a Magic Guide sprite with 2 strong and powerful legs and a round head that was slightly different from the other 3 components. Without a doubt, among the many mechanical components, it played the role of the leg position. Card name, Mechanical Component, Crack. Type, Sprite Card, Level, Race, Mechanical Type. Attribute, Steel Type. Magic Power, 300, Attack, 800, Defense, 300. Ultimate Skill, Perfect Assembly. After being summoned, Mechanical Component, Crack, immediately rushed to the red side's area. Its purpose was very obvious. It wanted to further assemble with the mechanical guard. The 4-in-1 assembly could allow the mechanical component to transform again. This was Elsie Kevin's chance to win. Commentator Wilson obviously had some understanding of Kevin's mechanical components. He said on the spot, "It seems that contestant Kevin is not waiting for death. He might have a chance to turn the tables." The mechanical guard, which was beaten to a pulp, rolled all the way back to the blue side's area. Then, its body suddenly shrank. It was unknown whether it had voluntarily deactivated the giant nuclear transformation, or its time was up. However, the polymorph monster that had perfectly transformed into a mechanical guard did not show any signs of fading away. It took 3 steps into and threw a heavy punch at the back of the mechanical guard. Boom! The mechanical guard fell forward. But it happened to meet the mechanical component, Crack, that was running quickly. Under the effect of perfect assembly, the 4th mechanical component had joined the family. The mechanical guard had strong and powerful legs. Although there was not much magic power left, it had gained new strength. Card name, Mechanical Commander. Type, Sprite Card, Level, Race, Mechanical Type. Attribute, Steel Type. Magic Power, 1,400, Attack, 2,000, Defense, 1,500. Ultimate Skill, Perfect Assembly, Giant Nuclear Blade. The Mechanical Commander, which was more than 2. 5 meters tall when it stood upright, had a terrifying 7-star level, and 3 measurements that were only equivalent to a 4-star magic guide elf. However, the moment it turned over and stood up, it pulled out an extremely long exclusive weapon from the side of its right leg. Its attack power had increased by 1,000. 2 in 14/100. How many more monthly votes are needed? You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.